尊敬的各位嘉宾、各位业界同仁，大家上午好！欢迎大家莅临由万象区块链实验室与 Hashkey Group 联合举办 W3Me 承办的 Hong Kong Web3 Festival 2025。我是今天的大会司仪 Jasmine， 你们好，谢谢，非常荣幸可以参与今次的活动。Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. A very warm welcome to the Hong Kong Web3 Festival 2025, co-hosted by Wangxiang Blockchain Labs and Hashkey Group and co-organized by W3Me. I'm Jasmine. It's my absolute honor to be the MC for today's event. Welcome everyone here. It's lovely to see so many beautiful faces here today. 首先，请允许我代表主办方感谢冠名赞助商 Ton Foundation、GMGN、OKX Web3 以及钻石赞助商 UMI、Platon、ZA Bank、博时国际战略合作伙伴、香港数码港、香港投资推广署和香港贸易发展局支持机构香港旅游发展局的大力支持，我们都给他们一些掌声好不好？感谢他们的支持。First of all, please allow me to extend our sincere gratitude towards Hong Kong Web3 Festival title sponsors, Ton Foundation, GMGN, OKX Web3 and Diamond sponsors, UMI, Platon, ZA Bank, Bozera Funds, and also a big thank you to Cyberport, InvestHK and HKTDC for supporting this event as strategic partners, Hong Kong Tourism Board as supporting institution. 自香港虚拟资产政策宣言发布以来，特区政府相继推出一系列创新监管框架与产业扶持政策，为 Web3 生态的可持续发展构建了坚实的制度基石。三圣万物，和而不同。我们以传承千年的东方智慧为指引，期待 Web3 技术如鲲鹏展翅，扶摇直上，在数位时代开辟新天地。让我们携手推动这项革新性技术，弥合世界分歧，构建更加开放、包容的数位文明。Since the release of Hong Kong's policy statement on virtual access, the Special Administrative Region government has successively introduced a series of innovative regulatory frameworks and industry support policies, laying a solid institutional foundation for the sustainable development of the Web3 ecosystem. 3 gives birth to all things, harmony in diversity. Guided by the millennia-old wisdom of the East, we look forward to Web3 technology soaring like the mythical quinpin, rising to new heights and carving out new horizons in the digital era. Ladies and gentlemen, let's join hands together to promote this revolutionary technology in bridging global divides, fostering a more open and inclusive digital civilization. 接下来，让我隆重介绍出席我们今天开幕仪式的贵宾。Next, may I have the honor to introduce the VIP guest attending our opening ceremony today. 我们都给他们一些掌声，好不好？香港特别行政区政府财政司司长陈茂波先生 ，The Honourable Paul Chen Mo-po, GBM, GBS, MHJP Financial Secretary of the Government of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. 全国人大代表、全国工商联副主席、万象集团董事长兼 CEO 卢伟鼎先生。Mr. Lu Weiding, Deputy to the People's National Congress, Vice Chairman to All China Federation of Industry and Commerce, Chairman and CEO of Wangxiang Group. 香港特别行政区政府财经事务及库局副局长陈浩濂先生。Joseph H.L. Chan, JP Undersecretary for Financial Services and the Treasury Financial Services and the Treasury Bureau, the Government of the HKSAR. 香港证券及期货事务监察委员会投资产品部执行董事蔡凤仪女士 Christina Choi, Executive Director of Investment Products, Securities and Futures Commission, Hong Kong. 万象区块链董事长 Hashkey Group 董事长兼 CEO 夏凤先生肖凤 Chairman Wangxiang Blockchain Chairman and CEO Hashkey Group. 香港特别行政区立法会议员科技创新界邱达根先生 Duncan Chill, Legislative Council, Member Technology and Innovation Constituency, Hong Kong. 香港数码港管理有限公司董事局主席陈信明先生 Simon Chen Sai Ming, BBSJP Chairman of Hong Kong Cyberport Management Company Limited. 香港数码港管理有限公司行政总裁郑颂妍先生 ，Rocky Chen Chung Am, CEO Hong Kong Cyberport Management Company Limited. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give them a big round of applause again. 再次感谢我们各几位的贵宾出席我们今次的开幕仪式。除了上述的嘉宾以外，出席我们今次会谈的还有来自全球的监管部门代表、Web3 行业专家、构校学者、金融和科技行业的意见领袖。In addition to the guests above, representatives from regulatory authorities worldwide, Web3 industry experts, university scholars, and opinion leaders from the financial and technology sectors are also attending this forum. 感谢各位的莅临。Thank you all for coming here today. Thank you so much. It means the world to us. 接下来，我们有请全国人大代表、全国工商联副主席、万象集团董事长兼 CEO 卢伟鼎先生上台，为2025香港 Web3 嘉年华致欢迎词。First, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Lu Weiding, Deputy to the People's National Congress, Vice Chairman to All China Federation of Industry and Commerce, Chairman and CEO of Wangxiang Group to deliver the welcome speech. 掌声欢迎 ！A big round of applause to welcome.
尊敬的陈茂波先生、蔡凤仪女士、邱达根先生，尊敬的各位嘉宾、女士们、先生们，感谢各位莅临第3届香港 Web3 嘉年华，请允许我仅代表上海万象区块链和香港海斯凯集团，向到场的各位嘉宾、各位行业专家和媒体朋友们表示热烈的欢迎和诚挚的感谢。春潮涌动湘江畔，万物竞发正当时。3年前，特区政府发布了虚拟资产政策宣言，意欲将香港打造为国际虚拟资产中心。在过去3年间，香港特区政府一直持续完善虚拟资产的监管框架，并在过去1年中推出了包括稳定币监管沙盒在内的多项创新举措，香港国际虚拟资产中心的地位逐渐稳固，全球影响力更上一层楼。今年嘉年华的主题更为丰富，讨论也将更加深入。我们关注到几个重要的特点与趋势：一、传统金融与加密金融进一步深度融合，稳定币 IWA 成为当仁不让的焦点。随着 AI 的快速发展 ，AI 与 Web3 的融合发展也是技术领域的热门话题。3、Web3 行业的聚焦也逐渐从基础设施建设转向应用探索。此刻的香港，既是国家数字经济蓝图的战略支点，更是全球 Web3 创新者的共同主场。潮平两岸宽，风正一帆悬，让我们充分发挥好香港虚拟资产政策的战略支点，以本届嘉年华为新的起点，共同推进加密金融基础设施建设，推动 Web3 和传统金融市场的融合与进步，共绘加密金融市场体系的香港方案。期待各位专家在4天的嘉年华活动中，结党智慧，缔结共识，为全球 Web3 发展写下属于香港的新一页灿烂篇章。谢谢大家。
谢谢，感谢卢伟鼎先生为 Hong Kong Web3 Festival 的致辞。 接下来，我们有请香港财政司司长大紫金训贤 GBS MHJP 陈茂波先生上台演讲。我们有请 Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the Honorable Paul Chamberpo, GBM GBS MHJP Financial Secretary of the Government of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. 掌声有请 Big round of applause.
鲁维鼎董事长、萧峰副董事长、Duncan, distinguished guests, innovators, and pioneers of the digital frontier. Good morning to you all. It is an immense pleasure to join you all today at the Web3 Festival of Hong Kong, a gathering of brilliant leaders and innovators to share thoughts and experience about the future of blockchain, cryptocurrencies, decentralized finance, and beyond. For those who have come afar, a warm welcome to Hong Kong. As a city where East meets West and tradition intertwines with innovation, we are proud to host you to collectively chart the course of Web3. As a technology, blockchain is displaying a vast potential, significantly increasing transaction efficiency, lowering costs, and enhancing market transparency. Today, we are witnessing a marked increase in institutional adoption of Web3, with traditional banks, asset managers, and brokers increasingly integrating digital assets into their offerings. As more jurisdictions embrace cryptocurrencies, the market has been energized with optimism, marked by a bullish trend over the past year or so. But beyond finance and the enthusiasm on cryptocurrency, we all agree that blockchain can bring real benefits to the people. For example, Refine is gaining traction. Tokenized carbon credits enable the transparent tracking of emissions reductions, reinforcing trust in voluntary carbon markets. Meanwhile, the convergence of Web3 and AI is unlocking new frontiers. In finance, decentralized AI algorithms enhance credit assessment, audit of smart contracts with greater precision, and delivery of hyper-personalized investment strategies. Beyond finance, this synergy streamlines supply chains, revolutionize healthcare data management, and create new immersive gaming experience. Web3 and AI are transforming business and public services, driving innovation and efficiency at every turn. Allow me to take a few minutes to talk about Web3 in Hong Kong, our attitude and approach towards Web3, and our role in this global transformation. Hong Kong is pro-Web3. Over the past 3 years, we have published a high-level policy statement on the development of virtual assets, affirming our commitment to a dynamic Web3 ecosystem. And central to this is the principle of same activity, same risk, same regulation approach. Through a balanced and pro-innovative regulatory approach, we seek to maintain a level playing field for market participants and encourage innovative activities in this space. We have been walking the talk and have delivered a number of initiatives. We were among the first in the world to have established clear licensing frameworks for virtual asset trading platforms. Indeed, the Securities and Futures Commission has already issued 10 such licenses. We have also authorized VA spot ETFs last year, and Hong Kong now hosts the largest VA ETF market in Asia Pacific, bridging traditional finance with crypto innovation. Meanwhile, legislation for stablecoin regulation is set for imminent passage. My colleagues at the Financial Services and the Treasury Bureau and the Hong Kong Monetary Authority are working very hard to get the relevant licensing regime to go live within this year. The government will also conduct consultation on the licensing regimes of over-the-counter trading services and custodian services for VA. This will solidify Hong Kong's comprehensive regulatory architecture. Let me make it clear that Hong Kong's approach to Web3 is not simply about regulation. We aim to strike a balance, ensuring market integrity without stifling innovation. After all, innovation entails risks. The lesson we have learned is that we need to put it under a balanced regulatory framework so as to enable the sector to grow in a responsible and sustainable manner. One essential element in our regulatory regime is sandbox, such as the Hong Kong MA's Project Ensemble. Project Ensemble allows innovators to test various use cases, such as tokenized real-world assets, RWAs, with early regulatory feedbacks. This signifies our pro-innovation approach as we put regulators and innovators in a co-creation process. Later this year, we will unveil a second policy statement on the development of virtual assets. It will cover how to make use of Web3 to fast-track the development of traditional financial services, empower the real economy, and strengthen the application of digital asset technologies. Now, looking ahead, allow me to share a few thoughts we consider important for the future development and success of Web3. First, it is the very vision of Web3 that is to enable more equitable use of the internet and make transactions more efficient and less costly. Innovation is core to this growth, and regulators should adopt a technology-neutral approach. It would only be counterproductive if jurisdictions or regulatory authorities favor particular types of cryptocurrencies or rule out technologies or applications at the outset. Markets, not mandates, should decide which innovation prevail. Second, we all know Web3's true potential lies well beyond digital assets or cryptocurrencies. Combined with AI, it can be a valuable tool to optimize impact investments, promote inclusive finance, support decarbonization initiatives, advance sustainable development goals, and more. The global Web3 community should and can strengthen collaboration to support these wealthy causes. Finally, it is essential that new technologies be developed and applied responsibly. AI, for instance, is evolving at speeds that are unexpectedly faster. Decentralized networks bring enormous benefits, but when coupled with AI, challenges such as algorithmic bias, deepfakes, and cybersecurity require attention and cooperation at the regional and global levels. Here in Hong Kong, we advocate for suitable guardrails, frameworks that protect investors, consumers, and users while encouraging innovative activities. We support a multi-stakeholder approach where governments, regulators, and market players across different territories and regions come together to drive forward the sustainable development of Web3. Ladies and gentlemen, to ensure a promising and successful future for Web3, we need not just technological innovation, but also a common view to harness creativity and innovation for the benefit of the people. Let me assure you that Hong Kong is committed to this goal. We are here to collaborate with innovators and entrepreneurs from around the world, pushing the boundaries of what is possible and leveraging the transformative power of Web3 for the greater good. I understand that over the past 2 days, there are over thousands of participants coming from abroad. Again, a very warm welcome to you all. And I wish to appeal to you to spend a little more time in Hong Kong, not just work. Please enjoy this city. There are a number of wonderful events, co-pay going on, and also remember we have 200 Michelin recommended restaurants, and we don't impose any duty on wine. So, apart from that, also shop till you drop. Thank you.
谢谢，感谢陈茂波先生的精彩的演讲，请陈司长留步参与我们接下来的合音环节。Thank you so much to the Honorable Paul Chemopo for excellent speech. Please remain on stage for a photo session. 接下来我们有请全国人大代表、全国工商联副主席、万象集团董事长兼 CEO 卢伟鼎先生，掌声有请。香港证券及期货事务监察委员会投资产品部执行董事蔡凤仪女士，掌声掌声。万象区块链董事长 Hashkey Group 董事长兼 CEO 肖凤先生，掌声有请。香港特别行政区立法会议员、科技创新界邱达根先生。香港数码港管理有限公司董事局主席陈锡明先生。再次用掌声欢迎我们的贵宾，感谢你们的莅临。现在我们一起拍个合照，我们先看看中间的大会摄影师。Let's look towards the middle for a photo together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Let's put on our best smile. 1、2、3，中间的位置。好，非常棒。下一张我们一起给一个赞，好不好 ？Let's put a thumbs up and let's look towards the middle. 我们看看中间大会摄影师，再拍一个合照。好，我们再看看我们的传媒朋友右手边的位置。我们再给一张好不好？我们再给一个赞，谢谢你们。好，我们看看右手边的位置。然后中间的位置，好，谢谢你们，再次感谢我们的贵宾参与我们的盛事，谢谢你们的支持。现在我们有请我们的贵宾可以到台下就坐，请回座。 Thank you so much. Please take a seat at the first row. Thank you. 再一次感谢我们的贵宾参与我们今天的盛事。那现在呢，温馨提示我们各位的嘉宾，本次活动采用绿色的线上同传服务，参与者可以扫描各会场专属同传二维码即可获取同传服务。Simultaneous interpretation is available at the main stage and select substage sessions. Please scan the code and listen to translated presentations and speeches via your mobile devices. 接下来我们会进行我们的主题演讲，我们有请香港证券及期货事务监察委员会投资产品部执行董事蔡凤仪女士上台演讲，掌声有请。Next, let's welcome Christina Choi, Executive Director of Investment Products, Securities and Futures Commission Hong Kong, to the stage to deliver a keynote speech. A big round of applause to welcome her.
Good morning, Mr. Siu and Mr. Lu. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and fellow innovators, it is my great pleasure to speak to you all at this iconic event for Web3. Before I elaborate on the SFC's initiatives in this regard, let me start with a very quick story. Last week, while scrabbling through a dusty box of forgotten treasures in my room, I found something curious. I held it up to my son and asked, "Do you know what this is?" Without hesitation, he said, "Of course, Mom. That's the save button. Why did you 3D print it?" That's right, to him, this tiny little square, plastic square, a floppy disk, is just a digital symbol he clicks every day. But this mix-up is not just a laugh. It is a vivid reminder to us all of how fast technology races forward. 30 years ago, the floppy disk was a game changer that zipped the world of information and data into something you could slip into your pocket. But today, it's just an icon the youth barely recognize. This brings me to today's topic, Web3 as the next technological frontier and the integration of crypto finance and traditional finance. Just as the floppy disk transformed how we store information long before Web 1.0 took hold, blockchain technology has the potential to rewrite the rules of finance and beyond, enabling new economic models, notably through the creation of crypto, or here we call them virtual assets, or VA, and tokenization of real-world assets. Like many of you, I'm very much inspired by all these transformative potentials, aligned with our government's visionary plans in this area that the Financial Secretary has just shared. The SFC is committed to supporting Hong Kong's Web3 journey. Yet, we all know Web3 is still evolving, and its full potentials will unfold in time, likely with twists and turns. Take non-fungible tokens, the NFTs, and the metaverse as an example. Their meteoric rise generated widespread excitement 2 or 3 years ago, but that energy has since faded. Therefore, rather than chasing every new spark, we believe in a pragmatic approach, strengthening the fundamentals and fostering a supportive ecosystem where Web3 can thrive in a sustainable manner. Central to this vision are digital assets, the mainstay of blockchain's infrastructure and potential. And today, I will outline how the SFC is leading in the efforts in 2 key areas. First is the VA ETFs and tokenization, leveraging Hong Kong's strength as a global financial hub. to drive this ecosystem forward. So across the diverse spectrum of digital assets, VAs stand out as the most recognized and familiar entry point to the digital economy. The SFC has long recognized that VAs are an asset class that is here to stay. That prompts us to pioneer a regulatory framework for VAs as early as 2018. And gradually, by a step-by-step approach, it has been extended towards VA ETFs. First, we have the VA Futures ETFs, and then we have VA Spot ETFs, allowing more investors to participate in this space with confidence through a regulated and traditional pathway. And last April, Hong Kong became the first in Asia to launch VA Spot ETFs, a milestone that underscores our leadership in regulated VA investing. Today, we remain the largest VA ETF market in Asia Pacific. Our robust regulatory framework sets us apart as we license all key players to conduct VA-specific activities, from fund managers to fund custodians and trading platforms. This includes strict oversight of VA custody with private keys and SITs secured in Hong Kong, safeguarding investors from the unique risks of investing in VAs. One compelling and unique feature of our framework is enabling in-kind creation and subscription on top of cash, allowing ETF share creation and redemption directly using the VAs. For other jurisdictions, this might carry unacceptable risks, but our regulatory regime makes the dealing process secure by requiring SFC licensed participating dealers to ensure compliance with anti-money laundering and know your transaction rules. But we don't stop just there. Our framework evolves to meet investor needs and advance the Web3 ecosystem. One exciting development is the expansion of eligible VA underlying assets. Initially, the VA spot ETFs focus on Bitcoin and Ethereum. Today, more VAs have become eligible for retail trading on our licensed platform. And we will also allow that, for the VA spot ETFs, and more will be coming on the horizon. And this will pave the way for more diverse ETF offerings, such as a single ETF that tracks a basket of VAs, similar to a traditional diverse index fund. And now I have some great news to share. Later today, we will publish a circular permitting SFC licensed VA trading platforms to offer staking services, including staking for our VA spot ETFs. And for those unfamiliar, staking allows investors lock up their VAs to support blockchain networks and therefore earn rewards in return. So it is a popular feature in the crypto world, but it comes with risks. Therefore, we will impose additional safeguards. For instance, our licensed platforms must maintain custody of the staked VAs, and we will put a cap of the proportion of VA spot ETFs that can be staked to manage liquidity risks. And this, once again, reflects our core principle, embracing innovation without compromising investor protection. So moving on from VA ETFs, which allow crypto assets and traditional finance to meet each other, tokenization offers a complementary pathway by applying blockchain technology to traditional assets and real-world assets alike, from bonds and funds to real estate and art. It could enhance efficiency, unlock liquidity and access to these assets, and bridge them to the Web3 ecosystem. And the financial landscape will therefore become much more interconnected. And some market participants have estimated that tokenized assets could be a $1 trillion market by 2030, mirroring the ETF growth story. And some estimated that tokenization of asset management alone could deliver cost savings exceeding $100 billion every year. Here in Hong Kong, progress is already underway to capitalize on these opportunities. The journey began with our tokenization circulars published in November 2023. They provide regulatory clarity for tokenizing investment products and also signal Hong Kong's commitment to facilitate development in this area. Fast forward to today, our efforts are starting to bear fruits. We have seen in our city privately offered tokenized structured notes, warrants, bonds, and private tokenized funds, and also a retail tokenized gold product physically backed by physical gold. So just recently, 3 retail tokenized money market funds hit the market, and one of them being the largest debut of this kind. In parallel with that process, Project Ensemble that you just heard from the Financial Secretary, launched by the Hong Kong Monetary Authority in 2024, serves as our innovative sandbox for tokenized money, an important building block for enabling seamless transactions of tokenized assets. And the SFC is co-leading the asset management-related pilots. Under the project, collaborating with the industry to integrate tokenized money into the trading and dealing of tokenized products. And these experiments are yielding valuable insights for real-world adoption to deliver tangible benefits, such as instant fund subscriptions, redemption, and shorter settlement cycles. Next, we will explore secondary trading of the tokenized investment products, an area generating much excitement. I think it is no doubt a critical piece in the long run that would give tokenized assets 24/7 liquidity and access, from peer-to-peer over-the-counter trades to full on-exchange trading. But investor protection remains our priority. Just as the traditional stock exchanges have evolved over many years, the challenges in this area would be equally, if not more, complex, including custody, liquidity provision, fair pricing, order matching, and the unique risks related to the tokenized assets and in the whole ecosystem. It follows that we will proceed thoughtfully and certainly explore measures to support the industry efforts along the way. So what do all this mean? Why choose Hong Kong for your Web3 project? I think the answer is very clear. Hong Kong has it all. Ranking 3rd in the Global Financial Centers Index, we have a rock-solid financial system of time-tested resilience. We have a trusted legal and regulatory framework rooted in common law, renowned for its integrity, independence, and also fairness. Our location at the heart of Asia, geographically, economically, and culturally, makes us the natural hub for the flow of digital assets and Web3 talents like all of you across the region. Beyond these foundations, Hong Kong's authorities are making concrete and coordinated steps to realize our vision. And the government's policy statement on the development of virtual assets in Hong Kong and the coming 2.0 statement will affirm our commitment and ambition to drive VA innovations. Meanwhile, the Hong Kong MA is pushing boundaries with the Project E Hong Kong Dollar Plus, Project M Bridge, and a stablecoin sandbox to explore a central bank digital currency, blockchain-based cross-border payments, and regulated stablecoins. And of course, for the SFC, we unveiled the Aspire roadmap in February, just 2 months ago, to lay out our forward-looking plan centered on the 5 pillars of access, safeguards, products, infrastructure, and relationships. The roadmap outlines a comprehensive strategy for VA market development, including the coming licensing frameworks for VA OTC trading and custody services. These initiatives are driving us forward to a tipping point for Hong Kong's Web3 ecosystem. But we must be patient, pragmatic, and persistent. Think of artificial intelligence. It reached critical mass and scale only after decades of research and development. Web3 is likely to follow a similar path of success, hopefully much faster. On a final note, I must emphasize that we stand today at the crossroads where traditional finance and digital economy are converging to drive promising outcomes for our financial markets. The 0 to 1 breakthrough has been made, and its future success would very much depend on how we nurture this convergence. That is, how we go from 1 to 100. Much like the 0 to 1 stride that the floppy disk made a few decades ago, which accelerated the growth for the entire personal computing industry ever since. So today, let's all work together on our way towards 100 by integrating the reliability of traditional finance with the vitality and dynamism of the digital economy. We will work together to build a vibrant, interconnected ecosystem that drives us towards just as Hong Kong has already done. Thank you.
Thank you， 感谢蔡女士的精彩分享，请就坐。Thank you so much, Christina, for your wonderful sharing on viewing the Web3 and digital asset ecosystem in Hong Kong. Please be seated. 接下来，我们有请香港特别行政区立法会议员、科技创新界邱达根先生进行分享。有请 Next.May I invite Duncan Chill, Legislative Council, Member Technology and Innovation Constituency, Hong Kong, to deliver a keynote speech. A big round of applause to welcome him.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I've been thinking about whether I should use English or Mandarin, but I think I stick to the original plan. I use English as the way to deliver my note. So you heard from our financial secretary and also Christina from the SSC, the official line about the development of the Web3 economy in Hong Kong. And as a legislator, I think what I'm going to share is my own expectation. Doesn't mean the government line, but you know, I've been involved in the Web3 development in Hong Kong, so I have a lot of expectation, you know, that we can build this into a huge ecosystem and financial system in Hong Kong. So what stage are we in, you know, Web3 in Hong Kong? Of course, we share a lot of progress from the government side, but how do other people feel us? You know, I looked up a few surveys that how do they rank Hong Kong. According to the crypto transaction value, actually we see great improvement, or I mean a great surge in 2024, where we see 85.6% increase in crypto-related transactions in Hong Kong. And according to chain analysis, the global cryptocurrency adoption index ranking, we are now the 30th, and you know that's in 2024. And if you look at 2023, we are 48th. So we have a big improvement from 23 to 24. And in Asia, according to the Henley Crypto Adoption Index, we went from 2023, we are number 4, to the 2024, we ran 2nd in Asia. So these are what, you know, outside survey rank Hong Kong with only 1-2 years of work. And of course, this is only crypto related. You know, what we're doing in Web3 is a lot bigger than just crypto trading alone. So as Financial Secretary mentioned, you know, we have formed task force in the last 2 years to look at, you know, how we build up the Web3 ecosystems in Hong Kong to provide safety to investors, but at the same time provide innovation to innovators. So this is a huge thing we have to do to balance the development of Hong Kong. And I see in some chat group recently that there are some comments saying Hong Kong, we are more welcoming to institutional digital asset players, but not to the crypto native people. I think if you look at the ambition of Hong Kong building a Web3 ecosystem, if you look at the financial markets, if you want to be the global financial markets, which we are in Hong Kong, well, you cannot only have equity, but not bond market, right? You cannot only cater for professional investors, but not to retail investors. You have to actually have compliance, governance, regulations, and market for all participants in that market if you want to be leader in that particular industry. So if we want to be Web3 leader, or Web3 hub globally, I think we have to be very holistic, but not just working on the regulations that favor institutional investors, but also definitely we have to look for a way to accommodate the crypto native people. So with that task force, we work on with different government departments involved and also industry experts to give opinions and comments of the development of Hong Kong in the Web3 ecosystem, which I'm also a member of. And I have to speed up. So for the last 2 years, we've done a lot since the Financial Secretary's statement in 2022, December, when we announced the 2022 October, where we have the policy statement. So it's only a bit more than 2 years. I used the same chart this is my third time since the first year of our Web3 Festival. And every year we're adding some new stuff to it. So apart from the statement being announced in 2022 October, we've done the AML bill, which allow for the virtual asset trading platform, VATP license to be granted. And we also, the government have lead by trying out new tokenized products like the government green bond and also products that Christina just shared in the ETF level. And we're looking forward to the second virtual asset policy statement, which will be announced soon, hopefully. And we are doing some other policy changes in Hong Kong. We have just finished the debate on the stablecoin bill in Legislative Council. So I look forward the bill will be passed in Legislative Council in May. And I look forward to stablecoin issue in Hong Kong by second half this year. And then we have the virtual asset OTC doing the second public consultation. Hopefully, it will come to LegCo soon. And we have the VA custodian, which are all important regulations related to the development of Web3 and digital asset products and virtual asset products in Hong Kong. So things we have done in the last 2 years, as mentioned by the FS and Christina, we tried out new products, the ETF based on futures and also based on spot cryptos. These are new stuff, and we're happy to learn about the staking thing Christina just announced, which is also a new breakthrough in the Hong Kong government and SFC. We licensed 10 VATP exchange in Hong Kong, and there are 8 still pending. So I hope there will be a few more coming. And next, I'm really happy to see SFC share the Aspire 2 months ago. The idea of Aspire, I won't elaborate, but it's not just on the regulatory side, but shows SFC's approach to also promote the development of the market. And my sharing today will only focus on one thing of this Aspire, which is the P, the product. So product which will be important for Hong Kong to build up our Web3 ecosystem. If we look at globally, going back how different countries are legislating on crypto and virtual assets, we see that the blue bar, which are the advanced economy. For advanced economy, actually 59.5% have regulated virtual assets, or with an AML regulation, which is 14.3%. So more than 70% of the advanced economy, they have regulated this industry. And for the developing or emerging economy, which they also include Hong Kong, Singapore, and Dubai as the emerging economy, only 19.8% have regulated with comprehensive framework, and 5.3% regulated with AML. So around 25%, 1/4 of the emerging nations, they have, regulated the V8 industry. And interestingly, with the advanced economy, which include the United States, a lot of these advanced economy, they do regulate Web3. Only 20% of them, many of them, these 20% of them, they apply existing rule. You see the advanced economy, they regulate virtual assets, but they use existing rule mostly to govern this industry. Where the emerging market, like Hong Kong, Singapore, Dubai, we have set out a bespoke rule. So we come up with, our own set of new legislation to run this virtual asset industry. And within this, if we want to be holistic, there are many things in the industry we have to look into legislation or regulation. So these are the product side we have to look into. Staking, we're happy to hear from Christina. We have this policy now on the staking. Mining, derivatives, lending, the multiple of lending, payment. These are all things we have to set out for the industry to understand, what can be done and what cannot be done in Hong Kong. And the range of service, we have the exchange services now, we have the VATP license, but what about broker-dealer? Who can deal, what's the procedure of the broker-dealer involved? Custodian, we look forward to the custodian license very soon, and advisory. And of course, in the regulatory approach, product listing, this is important. What can be listed in Hong Kong? So, there are many things more. We still have to, come up with, a set of governance in Hong Kong to actually get everyone into the market. And definition of product, how do we define the product? Because we all know this is a new market. How do we define crypto? Or, what is Bitcoin? This actually lead to a long discussion over the years. Xiao Zhong actually yesterday laid out 5 definitions of the tokens. Having these with a legal friend, actually categorized into 4 different kind of products, but actually similar to what Xiao Zhong mentioned in the 5 category, because they group the crypto, BTC and Ethereum together. But Xiao Zhong actually mentioned BTC as one category, and then utility-related crypto, like Ethereum, they are a second batch with a smart contract related. And then we have tethered tokenization product, which are things with underlying assets. CBDC, stablecoin, RWA, security token. These are all things with underlying securities or assets or service underneath. And then there are untethered tokenization where you have NFT, meme coins, etc. And of course, we have utility digital tokens, which is kind of similar to Ethereum, utility related. So this is how we categorize, how virtual asset can divide into. And then we can look at, how do we deal with these things and what other countries are doing, Everyone, the spotlight is definitely on the US, where, you see a lot of, you heard a lot of about the progress in the US. I think we have many experts today here to share about the US development. But, the development, they come into a different 180-degree change in coming from an enforcement-based regulation to a direct legislation process, where you see a lot of bills being discussed in the US. And then the stablecoin is actually progressing really fast. I was saying that we were at the LegCo discussing the stablecoin bill for the last 3 months. And in the process, every month when we have a meeting at LegCo, there are updates from the US about the stablecoin bill. So we have to update ourselves every month when we meet about the progress in the US. So also, I think on last week, the US also come up with the covered stablecoin, mentioned. The covered stablecoin would be a product, it's not a security. So there's a clear guideline from the US, which is, kind of useful for us to look at. And then strategic crypto reserve, not Bitcoin reserve. Everyone was expecting strategic Bitcoin reserve, but it was kind of, something of a dispute that, is actually come out as a strategic crypto reserve that the US mentioned with a basket of different crypto, and why some cryptos were involved actually, caused a big debate in the US. So if it's only Bitcoin, it's more straightforward. But the basket of crypto reserve, actually, I don't know, but that we will keep an eye on. And of course, the Genius Act in the US, which lays the foundation for stablecoin, payment stablecoin, and cover stablecoin, they are not security, which is a good things we can look up from here as reference. And we all know that the stablecoin market now is dominated by two main issuer, the DT and DC. But if we look at the issuer capital that they account for is around 220 billion US dollar. But I mean, according to World Trade, global trade is 33 trillion US dollar last year. So if we look at stablecoin as a mean for global trade, we still have huge room to grow. And I think we have high expectation for Hong Kong to issue new stablecoin to deal with proper global trade. I think there's still a huge market for us to build into. And the existing market represents some kind of global trade that they are settling. But there are actually a huge more room for Hong Kong to actually to issue new products. And I look forward to stablecoin being issued in Hong Kong to deal with a big part of the global trade. And of course, I've been looking into Hester's 48 questions, where she categorized in the SEC side into 10 main questions and framework, what they are looking into. I think that's a good reference for us to take here. Then I think there will be a lot of changes in the legislation side in the US. And the US SEC's crypto taxonomy, actually, they have defined ways of how to categorize. As I mentioned, if we have 4 or 5 different groups of virtual assets, how do you categorize them? Are they a product? Are they securities? How do you define those? There are different cryptocurrency or crypto assets natures. So how do you define? The US actually, SEC, they lay draft for the way to define the different category, whether they are securities or not. And for the Europe, MiCA, is the licensing regime in the Europe. They also define ways to actually separate the crypto assets into different categories. Whether this is a CBDC stablecoin, then they will fall under different sets of rules and regulations. If it's a crypto asset, whether it's a utility token, NFT, whether it's other assets, so that will have different kind of regulations to govern them. And Hong Kong MA has mentioned that they are following or studying the Basel crypto asset standards. So this is a flow chart where you decide these products, different crypto assets, what classification they should be in. So simply said, Group 1A will be tokenized security products, which are originally issued as security product, like bonds with tokenized. Then it will be 1A. 1B will be more like stablecoin. And 2A will be the mainstream mainstream crypto products that we know of in Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc. And 2B will be more risky crypto products. So this is a flowchart where I think we need global discussions on in the Basel area. How do we deal with these crypto products? I think that will impact on how products being issued and categorized. And who can deal with particular kind of products. And meme coin, of course, we have to touch on the meme coin, which is a big thing in the US in the last few months. I personally, my own feeling, I agree with the SEC's line that meme coin should be like collectibles. They are like trading cards or art pieces. Whether meme coin should be traded on licensed exchange, that's my personal field. May not be a good choice. If it's as a meme coin, it's a collectible, we also shouldn't call the people buying and selling as investors. If you ask me, meme coin, you should call them traders. You trade football cards, you trade Pokemon cards, you trade artwork. So these are traders, my personal view. So whether meme coin should be included in exchanges is something we should consider, because that you give a statement on what this asset class is. So I know a lot of the fiat exchanges currently deal with all kinds of assets, including meme coins. But whether that should be included, I think that's my own point of view, that whether it should be included as a trading category in a licensed exchange. I think this is for the society to discuss. So final thoughts. My time is up. We should now be able to clarify, what kind of tokenized asset we're dealing with. If these are originally security products, which is only being tokenized, we should not be penalizing it by just being tokenized. If it's a tokenized bond, tokenized equity, we only tokenize with the technology, which is improving the efficiency to trade, having a more efficient way, transparent way to deal with the security. We should not penalize it because it becomes tokenized. At the same time, we should come up with ways to define crypto products, crypto assets, the risk level, who can deal with this? Is it only for professional investors or retail investors? So these set of rules and regulations and guidelines, we need to come up with ASAP so that people can understand what they can issue in Hong Kong, what new token products can be issued in Hong Kong. We don't want, I personally don't expect, we issue a VATP license for exchanges to just let people buy and sell existing cryptos. But we definitely have to look into how we allow new token, new crypto being issued and launched in Hong Kong, where we can allow global investors to participate. So this is how we build the market in Hong Kong. So that's conclude my sharing today, and thank you for listening. Thank you.
谢谢，感谢邱先生的精彩演讲，请就座。Thank you, Duncan, for shedding light on the topic, the key to unleashing value of Web3 finance in Hong Kong. 接下来，我们有请魏众银行副行长兼首席信息官、魏众科技董事马志涛先生带来分享。Moving on to the next keynote speech, may I invite Henry Ma, Executive Vice President and Chief Information Officer, WeBank Director, WeBank Technology Services, to the stage. Let's put our hands together for him. A big round of applause, please. 掌声有请。
尊敬的卢董事长、肖董事长、distinguished guests, I'm actually also have a similar struggle like what Duncan had, whether to deliver my speech in English or in Chinese. But I feel like I'm going to talk about technology anyway, so it's going to be a foreign language for most of the audience here. So it doesn't really matter. All right, so today I'm going to actually share our perspectives on how to build a cross-institution value exchange infrastructure to support the Web3 strategy in Hong Kong. First of all, a bit of background on WeBank. We started in 2014 as the very first digital bank in China. We are now serving more than 400 million customers, individual customers, and 5 million institutional micro SME. A few of the numbers that we are very proud of. Our peak single-day transaction is 1.4 billion transaction per day. Financial transaction in a day, 1.4 billion. Our cost of maintaining a bank account is 30 cents US per account per year. Well, it's actually 1/10 of what other state-owned banks in China are paying. And also product availability. 5 nines, telco grade, essentially non-stop services, 7/24. So these are the numbers that we are very proud of, and the technology capabilities that we are able to build over the years actually enable us to do a lot of thinking around how do we leverage the capabilities that we had. So last year in June, we actually set up a technology company in Hong Kong, a tech subsidiary called WeBank Technology Services, and we tried to really offer digital solutions to other institutions, banks, or other FIs in Hong Kong, and also try to help out to build out the digital infrastructure for the market. Also, we are very AI heavy. We do a lot of things in an AI native way, so we also try to offer AI native solutions to the market as well. Okay. Blockchain is definitely an area that we very much focus on. Since 2016, we actually have put together a dedicated team to do blockchain R&D. So far, we think we have done a reasonable job on that. The fiscal BCOS platform, in fact, when we first started BCOS, is actually with Wanxiang Lab in 2017. So many thanks to Xiao Dongzhijiang, because we got a lot of support from him to build the very first version of BCOS. And now the platform, high performance, just like the banking solutions that we offer to the market, 200,000 transactions per second. We can that's the kind of concurrency that we can support, and also very high security standard, because we are bank grade. We run a bank. We want to make sure that the technology that we built is able to support really robust financial operation, and also tech ready. We are a regulated entity. We work under regulation from day one, so we want to make sure that everything that we build is regulator friendly to begin with. And we did it in an open source way. So we open source the full code base to the public, so anyone can read every single line of the source code that we have. No backdoor, no security loophole. Everything is robust. And also, we try to be compatible with all the cryptographic algorithms out there in the market, making sure that it's not just be compliant with the local Chinese the standards requirement, but also be able to support the technology going abroad. So far, we have been very successful in building out the ecosystem in China. We have more than 500 live applications running on our blockchain platform. One of them actually relevant to Hong Kong is the cross-border data validation platform that we have built between Shenzhen and Hong Kong. And one of the applications that we apply on is to validate the education credentials, because there used to be quite a few fraudulent cases for students applying for higher education in Hong Kong, right? And we really want to leverage data to validate the authenticity and also the integrity of the credential that students supply when they apply for college in Hong Kong. Also, a lot of the output from the development that we had is standards, right? We participated in a lot of ISO and IEEE and also the local Chinese standards as well. Okay, so much so about the WeBank and fiscal BCOS. Going back, why are we interested in doing blockchain from the beginning, from the very beginning? Well, it's the promise. It's the promise from blockchain technology. To begin with, I think blockchain is really trying to cause disruption to the financial industries. A lot of promises we very much agree with, right? There are too much intermediaries right now in the traditional financial systems. Efficiency is low, cost is high, right? If you look at like cross-border remittance, T+1, T+2, very typical, right? Why can't we do it in real time, right? So blockchain come up with the proposition that you can rely on algorithm. There's no intermediaries involved. It can be very, very efficient. It can be very, very low cost. That's the promise. If you look at 2015, the cover page of The Economist actually say that blockchain can become the trust machine. So look at the development of blockchain technology over the years. Since the very first Bitcoin being minted in 2009, we see a lot of like transaction model evolving. From the very beginning, everybody think that, oh, well, Bitcoin is so amazing, right? So it can be doing like real-time DVP. It's very true. If everything sit on a single chain. However, this is never going to be the case, because since Bitcoin, there are already a lot of like variations. There are a lot of new public chains coming out, lots of new classes of digital assets coming out. It's not going to ride on a single chain, right? Not to talk about the fact that a lot of the traditional financial assets actually reside on non-blockchain. A lot of traditional financial registries, right? So how do we support that? Right. OTC, right? This is a very typical way of doing transactions in the financial systems, over-the-counter transactions, right? But there will be counterparty risk that we have to take care of, right? There are also very innovative players in the market come up with technologies leveraging MPC technologies to do key sharding, right? Like cutting your key, private key in 3 parts, and the trading partner each of them keep one of them, and the other sit on a custody. Right? But in introduction of a new custodian role, again, is an additional risk, is an additional intermediary, right? There are also ideas about decentralized exchanges, right? Right? Again, we see a lot of very innovative ideas to do a smart contract, to do a lot of like cross-chain technology to support decentralized exchange. However, wrapping one type of assets onto another chain to do transactions will cause fragmentation. Again, this will lead to issues around liquidity. Right? So, and a lot of those decentralized exchange mechanisms may not be fully optimized for performance either. Right? So at the end of the day, we go back to the very traditional approach, build centralized exchange, right? So that's why we have like regulations around how to regulate all these new types of virtual assets exchange. There's nothing bad about it, right? Because doing exchange using this kind of intermediary is a very traditional way, very mature way of how you do transactions. However, right, we also see that because of a new type of exchange come out, there will be new type of regulations that come along. So the burden of regulations come back again. So the compliance cost is rising tremendously at a tremendous speed. I'm sure in the audience today, there are quite a few of them, right? Also in virtual assets exchange, right? They will feel the pressure, they will feel the pain as well. So how do we tackle this problem? Is there any way that we can actually balance the goals of achieving efficiency, security, and also stay low cost around compliance? We believe there is, right? We can actually try to develop an infrastructure who can support different types of virtual assets and then really decouple the so-called tokenization and the transaction model. Get them fully decoupled. They don't need to tie up to each other, right? You don't need to ride on a single chain to do everything. And on security aspect, how do you do atomic swap? Atomicity is really the key. How do you make sure that the buyer and the seller, they will be able to complete transactions in real time without any delay, without doing the traditional clearing and settlement process? DVP, I mean, essentially in the financial world, delivery versus payment is the problem that we need to address, need to solve ultimately. Also on compliance, we don't want additional burden on regulations. We want to come light with compliance. We want to stick with the existing regulations and make sure that there won't be additional requirement being imposed. Is there a way to do that? We believe so, okay? We still believe that there's a way to really reconstruct the trust machine, leveraging technology, but definitely not by technology itself, okay? We want to have a very robust, high-performance underlying chain to be able to support the different types of virtual assets, RWAs, to be linked into the infrastructure. We want full decoupling of tokenization and transactions. We want DVP. We want atomic swap of these transactions happening in real time. And however, to do that, we can't just rely on technology. There need to be partners in the legal space, in other financial industries, to be able to provide the support, provide instruments to really ensure that can happen. Also on compliance, we really want to be able to group the participants, the trading partners, according to regulators. Okay, so that they can stick with the existing regulations and really don't need to do anything in addition. As I mentioned, it's not going to be just by technology itself. WeBank Technologies in Hong Kong, we have taken the lead to set up a platform, what we call the Portal of the Orient Symposium. Okay, Hong Kong is called the Pearl of the Orient, right? So we want to set up this symposium to really invite partners with like mindsets, with similar intentions to join force with us and to build out the next generation public infrastructure, which will unlock the full potential of WeBank for the continuous and healthy growth of Web3. Okay, so that's my sharing today. Thank you.
谢谢，感谢马先生的精彩分享，请就座。Thank you, Henry, for diving deep into the topic, building an institutional value exchange infrastructure to boost prosperity in Hong Kong. 接下来，我们有请京东集团副总裁、首席经济学家沈建光先生带来分享。Next, let's welcome a keynote speech from Mr. Shen Jianguang, Vice President and Chief Economist, JD.com Incorporation. A big round of applause to welcome him. 掌声有请。
非常感谢啊，万象区块链和 HashKey 这个组织的这个嘉年华非常荣幸来参加这个会议。刚才几位包括这个邱议员啊，包括还有几位监管就把那个 Web 3.0的总的大的这虚拟资产大的方向做了个非常好的一个说明演讲。我这边呢主要就是侧重稳定币这一块稳定币的这个发展和传统金融机构的这个融合这个讲7个方面的内容。这个第一个呢，从整体上来看呢，这个从23年下半年以来呢，稳定币这个开始恢复了大幅增长。大家知道，2022年出了一个事件Terra 那个有一个稳定币这个崩盘，造成了一个影响。但是到现在为止，其实稳定币基本上已经恢复了这个在全球总的市值刚才也介绍过，这个已经2200亿美元。已经大幅的高于这个出现问题之前22年的这个峰值这个当然在稳定币的总体规模来看呢，它现在还是跟以太币的规模差不多那也要大幅小于比特币这大的这个发展趋势呢，稳定币又开始恢复大幅增长。那么从这个交易从笔数上我们看到稳定币也是开始的规模也是大幅的开始增长了我觉得这个是一个非常重要的一个触发点，就是现在稳定币的规模包括日均交易各方面都在大幅的增长。第二个方面呢，从结构上来看美元的稳定币在整个稳定币市场占绝对的主导地位，所以我觉得香港现在，当然这个主要原因还有很多国家没有开始开展这方面的这个监管包括香港现在推出港币稳定币，现在还是在立法会现在还没有全部推出来。我觉得随着这个港币各种货币的这个推出来，可能这个会发生一定的改变，但是很难动摇这美元在这个稳定币当中的市场的地位这个基本上占95%远远超过美元在目前在这个储备方面或者国际贸易结算当中的地位。所以这就是为什么美国现在这个特朗普政府现在大力的加强推广稳定币的一个重要原因它可能会加强美元的地位。所以其他国家包括这个欧洲这个也在考虑推出这个欧元包括那个港币这个我在想今后这个当然是一个设想如果中国以后可以第一步允许离岸人民币稳定币的推出在离岸人民币这些方面的这个币种可能就会多样化。现在其实是美元这一个独大 那么在使用上呢，这个稳定币的使用范围逐渐向现实交易在拓展。因为我们看到稳定币最早还主要就是中心化交易所的加密资产交易当中使用。那么现在呢，开始逐渐转向支付、汇款、贸易结算资产管理。所以其他的这个用途呢，已经占稳定币的这个交易量的50%了这也是一个开始从交易开始转向实体那我们看到这个现在稳定币包括这个最主要的几个厂这个主要这个像 USDT、USDC 是主导的，但区块链分布呢主要在这个币安智能链波场这些主导。在使用上，稳定币的这个现实使用场景也在日益的这个多元化这张表是24年 Visa 就是对印度巴西、印尼、尼日利亚、土耳其5个新兴市场稳定币市场的调研。在这些国家呢，它的这个需求其实还是非常强劲的。那主要是用在货币替代为规避本币的货币大幅的波动贬值可以用于美元银行账号的替代。以及用于企业间的支付和消费者支付、金融投资和实物投资其实这块在发展中国家发展非常快所以使用上呢，其实它也很有市场所以现在感觉上就是还在处在刚刚开始的阶段包括香港也没有正式是吧？这个推出也马上今年就会推出中国现在还在这个研讨这个是什么时候可以离岸人民币也可以发展起来。欧洲呢 ，MiCA 已经推出来，但是现在欧元这个稳定币还是非常少。欧洲中央银行也在推数字欧元所以这些方面这个使用上现在还是已经用美元稳定币为主所以它的这个使用场景也在日益的多元化。那么这里边呢，就是在这个新兴市场。规避本币波动风险，稳定币成为一个重要的一个选择这个我研究也发现这个货币波动导致了这个新兴市场国家的这个巨幅的这个经济的波动所以现在看这个稳定币这个还是一个非常重要的，对这些国家来说这些企业个人来说，这个一个资产保值的一个重要的一个途径。那么在支付上，现在稳定币一个重要的途径就是跨境支付的比重，现在在持续攀升稳定币这个现在的这个季度的支付规模正在超越传统的这个支付系统这个23年这个 B2B 的跨境支付的总市场规模39万亿以后会达到30年达到53万亿当中，稳定币的规模和包括它的用户人群。都在不断的这个上升超越了这个传统的支付机构，所以在这22年以来呢，我们也看到这个币安的这个支付在全球的这个活跃用户当中已经达到1200万这个24年底超过了2700万可以看到这个增速是非常迅猛。所以在支付上呢，这个稳定币在跨境支付的比重也在持续上升这个当然它有得天独厚的优势我们如果看目前的传统的汇兑需要5个工作日这个完成基于跨境的这个电子通讯的这个电子支付呢，也要1天以上30%是1天以上完成，但是在区块链用稳定币这个支付1个小时以内100%的交易全部能完成。所以，这个我们看到包括24年稳定币年化交易额在 Visa、Mastercard 的年化交易额都已经超过他们了。所以这个方面呢，这个确实在支付当中的比重会的大幅的上升。这个主要还是它的成本是非常低的我们看到像很多这个传统的支付在非洲这些国家，你要7%的这个手续费那是非常对国际贸易的这个成本，支付成本是非常高昂的那么我从世界银行的数据来看呢，跨境汇款的平均成本已经从6.3跌到了这个其实跌的幅度也不大，基本上维持在6.3左右这个非洲要到7以上。那么如果是稳定币相对应的呢，基本上它的这个手续费是非常非常低的，几乎可以忽略不计我们看到 Solana 整高性能区块链发送稳定币 平均成本基本上都是可以获利搏击。币安这个其实也是手续费也非常低，14万美元才收1美元的费用，所以也看出它这个具有巨大的成本优势，稳定币。那么所以它这个也是因为这些特征，所以它这个在国际贸易支付当中比重在持续攀升当然它还是有一些这个要能力提升稳定性方面其实还在不断的这个需要提升当然这个当然靠技术不断的突破，这个其实是可以解决的。当然这里边还是有一些问题，比如说索伦纳已经经历了7次的重大的中断所以在技术方面呢，就是这个还是有一些障碍这个需要突破。所以在这个第5个方面呢，我想讲讲在那个去中心化的金融服务当中，稳定币其实是带动了去中心化金融的快速发展去中心化的金融其实也在这个大幅的这个上升这个包括用户投资者总价值，去中心化的这个金融仍然是链上这个主要的参与途径。所以稳定币带动去中心化的快速发展呢确实是因为它是这个支付的底层在去中心化的这样一个领域当中这个现在目前来看，特别去年所有的去中心化金融子领域都出现了大幅的增长尤其是在抵押和基差交易等新兴领域，是吧？所以按照总锁定的价值计算呢，流动性质押继续占据榜首最大的这个比重，其后是借贷桥接再质押以及去中心化交易平台这些所以从这个来看呢，在各个平台当中这块发展都是非常迅猛。那么稳定币呢，在这当中起到了一个非常重要的一个这个支持作用。那么在新的金融稳定币传统的这个金融体系的这个融合发展上，我们看到其实已经出现了巨大的这个发展所以这个21年Visa 和交易所的这个已经进行了合作试点USDC 在以太坊区块链当中的这个交易支付那么这里很多发展我们看到去年在线支付公司 PayPal 已经允许商家通过其他账户购买、持有、出售加密资产所以这个去年10月份Stripe 以11亿美元又收购了稳定币平台，这个传统金融跟这个稳定币这个体系在进行这个加速的这个融合今年3月份，这个稳定币 USDC 这个发行方 Circle 就是与菲律宾这个电子支付、电子钱包平台又达成合作进行股权投资所以这个方面呢，就传统的新兴的金融机构当中这个融合度是越来越高，而且呢，现在越来越多的银行这个机构在布局稳定币服务这个包括你看这个去年香港渣打其实也是拿到了一块牌照然后其他的像日本的3大银行是吧，也是联合推出跨境支付系统香港这个虚拟银行也在向这个零售用户提供加密资产的交易服务今年3月份梅隆银行这个为全球这个宣布扩大其稳定币发行商的这个提供服务，就这一系列的，就看来这个趋势在加速那么除了 ETF 之外呢，这个投行基金公司也在积极尝试发行稳定币或代币化的金融服务这里的就是一系列的这个我们看到这最新，特别是今年以来其实发展非常快的。我们看到在香港华夏基金推出了亚太首支零售代币基金那么新加坡的这个 DGFT 宣布为投资管理公司这个 Invesco 推出私募信贷基金的代币化版本中国太保在今年也在香港推出代币化美元货币市场基金一系列这包括在美国也是富达推出投资美国国库券的代币化基金这一系列的发展，就说明这个现在加密资产这个跟传统稳定币为首的跟传统的金融体系这个融合在加速的这个发展。那最后呢，在政策上，我觉得这一波的就是特朗普政府积极推出美国加密资产监管的框架，它的政策主线呢回归还是 支持创新发展为主线，减少不必要的监管。所以刚才因为我看邱达跟议员也是做了很好的这个一个解释哈。这里我想主要就是美国的这个发展，特别是大力的推动稳定币作为一个下一代重要支付的一个基础设施，对全球各大央行包括中国其实都会有，包括香港都会有很大的这个影响。我们看到这是一系列从1月23号就签署了这个美国的在数字金融科技技术领域的领导地位这样一个文件那么还设立了一个工作组这个白宫这个总统数字资产市场工作组要创造数字资产的黄金时代所以美国这个参众两院也提交了稳定币立法法案所以这个在美国发行交易稳定币要成立一个统一的框架，这些呢其实都对这个美国的稳定币发展我觉得就会提供很大的政策支持。那么所以这些国家呢，其他国家包括欧盟阿联酋新加坡、香港都在制定都已经发布了监管框架，或者已经在推出，包括香港已经马上就议会3读之后要开始正式发稳定币所以我觉得在这个全球的监管上，这一波这个浪潮我觉得就是会25年，我觉得是一个可能是一个非常重要的一个转折点就是很多国家都会发展各种各样的稳定币币种那么在政策上呢，美国的这样一个政策转变对全球的这个影响是最为直接的这个很多国家开始都纷纷改变这个对稳定币的这个态度所以我想今年正好今年马上要发稳定币了这个也是一个非常好的一个发展机会，所以在顺应了这个全球的稳定币发展的潮流正好时间也到了，谢谢大家
谢谢，感谢沈先生的精彩演讲，请就坐。What a fabulous presentation! Thank you so much. Please be seated. 在进行第一个原作讨论环节之前，我们有一个温馨提示给大家。我们建议大家活动期间自带手机耳机，需要同传耳机的用户可以通过以下的方式免费获取：一，在活动会场内拍摄活动相关的照片，或者是下载在线相册内的照片；二，发布推特或者是微信朋友圈，并定位2025香港 Web3 嘉年华；三，并发布内容前往各会场咨询台，就是你们左手边的位置，兑换耳机。耳机数量有限，限到限得，领完为止。So before we dive right into our first panel discussion, we have a few friendly reminders for everyone. Please remember to bring your own headphones to the event. If you don't have a pair available, you can get one for free by following these steps. First of all, take a photo inside the event site or download one from the online album. Secondly, tweet the photo using the Web3 Festival hashtag. And thirdly, show your post to our staff at the information counter on your left-hand side. Headphones are given out on a first-come, first-served basis. 接下来是 Web3 全球监管现状与挑战的原作讨论环节。Next, ladies and gentlemen, we will have a panel discussion on the topic, the current state and challenges of global Web3 regulation. 现在我们有请我们原作讨论的主持人还有嘉宾上台。Let's welcome our moderator, Duncan Till, Legislative Council Member, Technology and Innovation Constituency. A big round of applause to welcome our moderator and also our panelist, David Lee, Chairman of Global FinTech Institute. Welcome. Genki Oda, Chairman of Japan Virtual and Crypto Assets Exchange Association. Welcome. And last but not least, we have Kevin Ghoston, Co-founder and Managing Partner of Key Global Advisors. 掌声有请我们的演讲嘉宾. A big round of applause to welcome our panelists and moderator. And now I'll pass the floor to our moderator, Duncan. Duncan, over to you now.
Thank you. Morning, everyone. It's me again. So now the panel moderator for this section were three good friends, and happy to have David, Oda-san, and Kevin with us today, and from different part of the world, sharing their prospects and insights of what Web3 crypto is happening in different countries. Maybe I'll start with a short self-introduction by each of our speakers. I'll invite David first to do a short introduction, and then we go into discussions.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, it's such a great pleasure to be here in Hong Kong again and see the vibrancy of the Web3 communities. I am the chairman of the Global FinTech Institute. I'm also the professor at the Singapore University of Social Sciences. My research and also my investments is in the area of Web3.
Hi, thank you for inviting me. My name is Genki, chairman of JVCA. And the JVCA is a self-regulatory organization of crypto in Japan. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin, please.
Good morning. I'm Kevin Goldstein. My wife and I have a advisory business based in the United States, working in the ecosystem for more years than I can remember. And it's a delight to be here and join old friends and new friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. So why don't we do, I think we all share last year's in the same festival here in Hong Kong. So can we do a short, summary or introductions of what do you think about that happened in your part of the country or in the globally? Can we do let's do a sharing each on the, especially on US, a lot happened, but I know Japan, there's many things happens in Japan as well, but David, maybe we do about what you think about the past years.
Yeah, a lot has happened actually, of course, mainly US, Hong Kong, Dubai, and the rest of the world. And in Singapore, we are still seeing license being issued, almost like a month under the payments legislation, especially the MPI, major payment institution, that they could do crypto assets and so on. And we also see a lot of interesting ethics and regulation and efforts in building digital infrastructure. One of the most interesting is that it has moved on from the Monetary Authority of Singapore to the IMDA, the Infocom Media Development Authority, and they have a digital trust framework, which is very interesting because when we are dealing with crypto, it's all about trust. We're dealing with blockchain, it's about trust. And they're moving ahead where Web3 is converging with AI, IoT, cloud, and also XR. So they come up with this framework which enhance the digital trust globally. And one is to ensure that there are some sort of principles for security. So there's security as well as resilience for the digital infrastructure or anyone who is involved in the business. And then it's about accountability and transparency. So all businesses have certain principles that they should follow. And also digital data privacy and ethical behavior, which is with AI coming into crypto, blockchain, ethical behavior and a set of standards of professional practice is important. And finally, interoperability. So they have this SADI sort of principles for us to follow and start building digital infrastructures like global layer 1, which then we see government involving, as previous speakers have spoken and yourself, collaboration. How to build a highway where all the cars can come on, which is all the partners that we have. I think those are the major developments I see in Singapore.
Thank you. That's follow-up question is kind of interesting. So the IMDA, they involve in the roadmap for the, because they are very different from MAS. MAS is more like just the regulator, right? IMDA, as I know, they are more connecting to the industry, building up a new industry in Singapore and for the business prosperity. Right? So that's a very different angle that they involve.
Yeah, actually what we are involved in when you talk about digital infrastructure is just not about monetary authority. It is about Ministry of Communication, it is about Ministry of Trade, because now we are talking about supply chain, going cross-border, standardization of documents. We may even want to think about, which is impossible, harmonization of RegTech, harmonization of regulation across jurisdiction. So it's going beyond in the crypto 2.0, just purely the monetary authority. We got to get everybody involved. And IMDA has been doing this AI, blockchain, quantum computing with a report in 2019 that it came out. And it is actually for Temasek and GIC to look at the report and say, where do I invest? Where should the country be focusing on? But I suppose now that they are moving beyond that, so Singapore is attracting more like we have all the chip producer because crypto we need the hardware too, right? And the US has got a lot of regulation, a lot of sanctions and so on. Then also the software. So it is a all ministry effort rather than just a monetary authority.
Thank you. Interesting. So it's sort of like Hong Kong having Hong Kong MA and maybe FSDC, right, to come out and advise on the digital infrastructure and the roadmap for the industry development. So Oda-san, can you update us on what Japan is?
This year, and in the Japanese crypto market changed dramatically in this year. And the number of crypto wallet customer in Japan is exceeded more than 12 million customers, 12 million, and it means more than 10% of Japanese people have crypto wallet now. And follow this trend, the Japanese government decided to change the law from Payment Act law to Financial Instrument and Exchange Act. Yeah, and what is the most important is we classify crypto not as security. Yeah, we think crypto not security. Yeah, we devise it. Yeah, and the crypto and the security and the NFT and the stablecoin is quite different thing. Yeah.
Because 20 million is a lot for people in a country that own wallet. And last time we were in Japan, we discussed about the importance of these changes of the law and regulations. Because now crypto, if you trade crypto in Japan, the tax is 55%, right?
Yeah, 55%.
55%. Yeah. So that actually, even though you have so many exchanges license issue in Japan, but the tax is actually one thing that I wouldn't say stop, but restrict people trading crypto and cryptocurrency product. So now, if the law passed in Japan, then it will go from 55% to 20%.
50%, yeah.
To 20%.
Yeah, that's right. And as Duncan says, mentioned, after the law change, we are trying to build up three things. One is the tax reform, and from 55% to 20%. And the other thing is the Bitcoin ETF.
Bitcoin ETF
in Japan. And I'm sure from next April, Japanese government and JFSA will permit Bitcoin ETF in Japan.
In Japan, yeah.
And another important thing is leverage ratio. Leverage ratio. Before the leverage ratio of crypto in Japan was 25 times, but now just 2 times.
Yeah.
And by changing the leverage ratio, the trading volume of crypto in Japan was get very shrink.
Okay.
Yeah. And now we are trying to change the leverage ratio to max 10 times.
10 times.
10 times.
So now all exchange in Japan can only provide 2 times.
That's right. Yeah.
2 times.
2 times.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your proposal is 10 times.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So these are the 3 main changes. And we talk about stablecoin later, because I know Japan also passed the stablecoin thing, but we talk later. Kevin, very interesting. Last year, we talk in Hong Kong. We have a short discussion last night. Things is like 180 degree, in the US. It's totally different from, when we meet last year, the scene. Can you update us, these Trump 2.0 new policy in the US?
I was going to joke that I'm so honored to be here this year and to be invited by Dr. Xiao and the Hashkey Group and DoYu and the Wangshang Blockchain Lab. I don't know why they invited me. It's not like there's been much going on in the United States, but it is absolutely fascinating. And I would also say that what you and your colleagues here in Hong Kong have done, Duncan, in the past year is also very impressive in your thoughtful progress and how you were even ahead of us But as I said in my address in October, that I thought that if Trump won, that the U.S. likely would go from being an anchor on the global ecosystem to being, quite frankly, leading it. And it's exceeded even my expectations. And to say that I have a couple things to relay is evidenced by the fact that my memory is good, but not that good. But let me touch upon some of them, which I think maybe are not being as widely reported, or perhaps I can give you some insight in addition to the other speakers. There's no question that Trump is doing what he pledged to do, which in the U.S. is a bit unusual for a politician. And so the fact that we have a strategic Bitcoin reserve, I think they got to the right place by putting just Bitcoin in it and then creating the separate digital asset stockpile with the other assets. And there's no question, and there's even a bill in Congress that Cynthia Lummis of Wyoming has proposed to buy another 1 million Bitcoin. And so this is doing exactly what we thought it would do in terms of shaking up the perceptions globally, and I think getting a lot of governments around the world to think perhaps additionally. But then when I look at what Trump has done in terms of the nominations of Bessent as Treasury Secretary and Lutnick as Commerce, these are very pro-digital asset, crypto individuals. You look at their history. I mean, Howard Lutnick has an affiliation with Tether from his former Cantor Fitzgerald days. But I think what's really surprised me and many in the U.S. is the depth and breadth of the Trump family involvement. I did not foresee this, but the World Liberty Financial effort, which raised $550 million in a token raise, the fact that they have announced they're going to launch a stablecoin. Recently, you may not have noticed that the Trump brothers are partnering up with a company called Hut 8 to create American Bitcoin, a specific mining effort. So the Trump family is all in, and some would say that the Trump wealth is now greater from our ecosystem than his history of real estate. So that is absolutely consistent with what he has been pledging to do, and why I think we have a lot of confidence that he will continue to, as he said, make the U.S. the crypto capital of the world. As far as Congress, you're well aware of the stablecoin legislation that's moving on both houses. It is very fast to many, but I will tell you, and others are going to comment on this, they've been working on these for years. So while it's moving fast, a lot of the work has been being done for years, including by my friend Jason Brett, who's going to give a keynote in a little while. When you look at the SEC and the CFTC, again, Paul Atkins has been passed through is going to be approved. Brian Quintenz, who obviously is going to head the CFTC. It's total sea change. They've been dropping, obviously, lawsuits against the Coinbases, the Ripples, the Binances. Hester Pierce, as is referenced earlier, is leading a task force. So we now have an SEC and a CFTC that are going to work together, which we have not had. And they're going to push forward with innovation and responsible, I believe, regulation. I think in custody, the repeal of SAB 121, which made it prohibitive for a bank to custody assets, is obviously a sea change. And you're now seeing, listen, big banks, Boney, State Street, and many other banks that are offering custody services, and not just for the crypto, the Bitcoin ETFs, et cetera. So, and of course, the FDIC, they've come out and said that the banks don't have to ask for permission to engage in crypto. So this is really a sea change in there. In terms of industrial adoption, listen, the BlackRock success with BUIDL and the tokenizing a money market fund with the securitized protocol, it's approaching $2 billion in assets rapidly. It's indicative of where Larry Fink, who we like to joke is the chief marketing officer of Bitcoin, where he has said tokenization of financial assets is coming and will revolutionize many things. I think what you're going to see, which people aren't talking about, is a very important development in prime brokerage. You've not heard that today, you won't hear it again, but prime brokerage is the investment banks facilitating the institutional asset managers trading, lending, borrowing. Very critical. as well as what enables this ecosystem institutionally to grow, is going to be the continuing evolution, as I've witnessed in my career, of the service providers to enable it in technology and software and all the financial. So that is very important. Obviously, products are coming. You may not have noticed Fidelity announced a no-fee crypto IRA, first of its kind, that'll allow exposure to a few assets. That's remarkable. Institutional staking is rapidly being evaluated and looked at. Lastly, a couple points. Sorry if I'm going on too long, but obviously a few things have been going on. You're going to see mergers and acquisitions occur now with a rapidity that we haven't seen. Obviously, traditional finance, as they always do with new financial assets and the evolution of their businesses, have this build, buy, or lease choice. We accept that the big financial institutions will build, but many of the others, of course, will look to lease, and you're going to see and/or buy crypto-native firms. So I think you're going to see this merging of TradFi and crypto and DeFi in a way that is going to be unleashed that we haven't seen. And the M&A is going to be there. The exchange consolidation is going to happen. Broker-dealers are going to be acquired. So look out for M&A activity picking up. And lastly, IPOs. Obviously, we have a tumultuous time going on right now. But there's no question that there's a lot of crypto-native firms that are queuing to go public. Obviously, Circle filed their S1. Kraken, Gemini, Paxos, BitGo, Crypto.com, MoonPay, and the list goes on. Galaxy Digital will be able to list from Toronto to New York. And so we're seeing on all these different fronts movement that is mind-boggling to us who have worked in the ecosystem a long time, but by the same token now consistent with what the change in administration has said they were going to do. So thank you. Thank you for being patient and listening.
Thank you, Kevin. There's definitely a long list that actually has happened. And it's only, from our last meeting in October, you just remind me, it's only 6 months. So it's actually, this sea change, a lot of things is happening. Like you mentioned, the Trump family participations and regulatory, attitude, change of the regulatory attitude. And I think most importantly is that, really, I had a sharing last time that, I have some charts I didn't bring with me today. The traditional finance or the maybe Web2 company jumping into the digital asset scene. So a lot of institutions, banks, huge big funds, they're all jumping into the scene and, they're joining with the Web3 revolution this time. So you mentioned also IPOs, so Circle, and I think the biggest exchange in Japan was also listed last year, right, in US. So, I mean, what do you think? You think all these new, what we call old money, coming into the scene is a good thing and institutionalize all the development in digital assets, right? And is it also considering the crypto native, crowd, as I mentioned in my speech, that there are people that are wanting to stay in crypto native way where everything decentralized, less regulations and stuff. So what are your take on this?
Well, I think it's a good thing. Very simply said, it is what many of us in the ecosystem have hoped for many years. Obviously, there's some that are crypto native that are conflicted. But at the end of the day, if this ecosystem is going to evolve and grow, the institutions are going to facilitate it. And so in the general statement, it's absolutely a good thing. And I said in October at the Wangchang Blockchain Summit, why does Wall Street finally get involved? It's very simple, money, right? Wall Street now understands it can make money. They've been waiting to embrace this ecosystem. Many have been trading it, maybe have been offering services that are more quiet to their clients. But what they've been really waiting for is a regulatory environment that gives them permission, that gives them cover, that gives them the rules of the road. As you noted in your talk earlier, Duncan, that we're not having an SEC that enforces by, through enforcement their policies. We're now going to have thoughtful, like you've been doing here in Hong Kong, thoughtful policy, legislation to make it statutory, So it just can't be reversed in a next executive order from the next president, et cetera. So there's no question that TradFi and DeFi are coming together. And what I think is going to be so interesting and what we all have to figure out is who are going to be the winners. But TradFi is absolutely going all in, more than most people realize. I know this because of my work, and I'm telling you, the banks have been waiting to be custody. The banks have been waiting to provide services to the institutional clients, like I referenced prime brokerage, which has absolutely enabled the hedge fund industry to evolve globally. So it's such a good thing. All due respect to those who want crypto to stay retail, it's going to be institutional and retail on a scale that I think we haven't even, the wildest expectations are possible.
Interesting. So we expect a lot more to come from the U.S. I think in the next few months. It's only a few months into the Trump 2.0, so we expect.
Well, and if I may add, Duncan, I think that Trump only has a window of months, okay? Because again, we have a midterm election later next year. So the Trump organization, the Trump administration is working as fast as possible because they are well aware, as you may also be aware, that he has a very limited window to do all the things he's doing in his administration, but also certainly in this ecosystem. And if I may make one other comment, because obviously we exist not in a vacuum, but in a global economy. And I don't want to be remiss in not acknowledging that the world changed further last Wednesday with his announcement of tariffs. But as a student of history, I'd just like to share a quick comment. When Ronald Reagan became president in early '81, Paul Volcker crushed our economy by raising rates because we had stagflation. We had huge inflation that they had. The U.S. went into a recession in '81, '82. It wasn't pleasant, but that set the foundation for growth and the evolution of the financial markets in the U.S. from '82 to '99. So I would say to you that a lot of people are criticizing what the administration is doing. They may be right, they may be wrong, but what the Trump administration is trying to do, and Scott Bessent is very bright, and we don't necessarily like tariffs, and we like free and fair trade, generally speaking, but they're trying to restructure and reset an existing order that was not sustainable, to be blunt. So we may have some more turbulence. I don't know if we'll escape a recession in the U.S. and the implications for the world economy, and obviously the implications for our ecosystem. I'm well aware what Bitcoin did overnight, as we all are. But I would say, please be patient. Please keep the faith, and that if they're successful, and I think they will be, it will set up a period of prosperity for the U.S., and I believe the rest of the world, and most importantly for our ecosystem, that I'm very hopeful will be realized. Thank you for allowing me to say that.
Yeah, I agree, Kevin. It's totally, I think it's a new economic paradigm that, bringing around. And I think with Trump, he has, more than 20 billionaire in his cabinet. He has been well advised by a lot of business people. Interesting to see how things turn out. I think the Hang Seng Index dropped 2,000 points as of now, but it's a new paradigm I think everyone has to face globally. And let's go back to Web3. We're gonna, we have other panel talk about tariff and stuff, so let's go back to Web3. But going back to stablecoin, we'll go to switch back to Japan. And as we said, your exchange listed in the US, and stablecoin, actually, the bill has passed in Japan, right?
Yeah.
And we were in Japan last year. And by the way, we have to, give a brief introduction of JVCEA,
Okay, yeah.
right? Because this is the consortium represent
Sure.
all the exchanges in Japan.
Yeah.
And we were talking last year, and Sony, actually, when I was in
Sonium,
Japan,
yeah.
Announced they're going to issue a stablecoin or the Sonium, the ecosystem. What is
yeah.
that about? Yeah.
Okay.
That's a big thing in Japan.
Yeah. And first, as of stablecoin in 2023,
yeah.
2023, the law as of stablecoin was enacted in Japan. And last year, the first stablecoin distributor license was permitted in Japan. And as of stablecoin law, in Japanese company can issue and distribute stablecoin pegged to fiat currency, like USDC or RUSD. Yeah. And JBCA is also the SRO of stablecoin too. And as Duncan mentioned, the Sonium is not stablecoin. Yeah, that is blockchain project. Yeah. And that's not a stablecoin. Yeah.
Not stablecoin.
Yeah.
Okay. So stablecoin, as we understand, is it going to be led by the MUFG group, the Mitsubishi group? Or?
Yes. Mitsubishi Group is trying to build up new stablecoin. And first, in Japan, last month, USDC was permitted to distribute in the Japanese market. Yeah, but I think in this year or next year, some stablecoin pegged to fiat currency will be start to for issue and distribute. Yes.
That's very interesting because that's also something that we are studying here in Hong Kong. You know, how USDC was allowed to be distributed in Japan. I think that's a passport way that you created in Japan, which is a very new model. I think it's only in Japan, right? That's the first one.
Maybe, yeah, only in Japan. Yeah, only in Japan. And stablecoin law is classified not as a crypto law. Yeah, it is separated crypto and stablecoin. Yeah, and the stablecoin law is governed by a Payment Act. Yeah, and as I said, now the cryptocurrency will be changed from Payment Act to Financial Instrument and Exchange Act. Yeah, but stablecoin is a Payment Act. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to David. I know, David, you've been not just familiar with the Singapore market, also Hong Kong, China. You have very involved in the whole development of the Web3 industries in Hong Kong. So we mentioned about what new announcements approach in the U.S. about the the Web3 and the VA digital asset related regulations. For the tariff, I know the Prime Minister of Singapore, Lawrence, he actually made a good video yesterday. A lot of people watch it, so he said he's not going to fight back or things or give impend new tariff against U.S. side. And I think that's a very calm and very needed video from Singapore about the intention about the tariff situation. But what about all these new changes in the U.S. about the Web3 and the crypto legislation? Has actually Singapore side has any feedback on the scene, the sea change in the U.S. or
Okay, if I can recall, Paul Atkins and Hester Peirce actually made a visit to Hong Kong and Singapore in 2019 to look at how the crypto scene in Asia was doing. So the extensive discussion with Hong Kong community and also Singapore, and you can see that whatever they were discussing there at that time of Safe Harbor, Sandbox, and you look at all her writings in back to 2019, everything that she has announced in the last two months are based on what she has been talking about with Paul Atkins since 2019. So this is a team that in the world, to me, not only are familiar with the Web2 financial architecture and infrastructure and regulation, and how regulation can change another entire landscape of finance, but they are also the team that really know about Web3 because they have been lying low for 6 years. And now they get a chance to do what they want to do. And I feel that the whole world is focusing on the US, especially if we just talk about the stable coins, and your presentation actually summarized quite a lot of them. But I think the most important thing that we are seeing now is that all these tariffs and so on, as a lot of hedge fund managers, they're looking at it as just a way to negotiate for the new financial landscape that we're going to see in the next 1 to 2 years. And that includes China in the conversation. And that's only through the trade. So this is a very short time period, and I think the market is reacting correctly. We need to have a deflation after so many years of QE from 2008. And Satoshi Nakamoto is exactly right that, and all his wishes are, or all their wishes are now being seen. So it is a good thing to see market coming down 2,000 points. It will cause pain, but a cold turkey from the economics viewpoint, is the only way to reshuffle the cards and to ensure that we have a financial system ready for crypto 3.0. We are at 2.0. So we have stable coins. We have all the sandbox that have collaboration. We are building government open permissionless blockchain, which is the highway for different cars to come on. But 3.0 is important because the major problem in the financial sector, as all regulators know, is about investment and lending for SMEs. What can crypto 3.0 do for financial inclusion? What can we put on all the financial instruments into that so that US can take the lead and the rest? So US is all in and Asia will be all out to support the kind of initiative, so to ensure that whatever hasn't been able to solve by World Bank, IMF, IFC, and central banks will be solved by what Satoshi Nakamoto has always been talking about in that white paper. And this is why we are all here about Web3. Why we are here, it is not about punting, it is not about Singapore launching perpetual futures, but those are important. Because you don't launch the perpetual futures, there's no trading volume in the underlying instrument. How can we use this instrument to raise funds for the SMEs who account for 80% of employment in the world? So we have to refocus. What is Hester Peirce, Paul Atkins, and all the regulators in Hong Kong, Singapore, Dubai, and the rest of the world thinking? It is not only MAGA. It is not only Make America Great Again. It's MTWGA. It is about making the world great again.
Wow, that's a very big perspective, making the world great with the technology. So I think technology always change people's, how we live, how we actually, do business whatsoever. So that touch on a little bit on what I want to share next is the future. What do we expect either from your country or from the technology? What innovation that we're looking forward to? Because from my work, I share about my perspective for the next 1-2 years that I want to advocate. Right, is Hong Kong doing clear product classifications? Finish the legislation that we actually tabled, the consultations that we've done, the VOTC custodian, product issuance, token issuance in Hong Kong, how we define is this securities or this is not security, which is for professional investors, which is for retail investors. So these roadmap, I think, is going to take us, as legislator or the government regulatory department, the next 1-2 years work. So what about from your perspective, from things that you're working on? What do you expect the next 1-2 year and what you foresee will happen, David?
Okay, the first thing I want to say, which a lot of people don't see, is that AI is going to cause a lot of damage. AI is going to have a lot of scams. AI is going to produce a lot of false receipts to make accounting really bad. AI is going to ensure that all the, especially the generative AI and AI agent, without crypto, without blockchain, without Web3, is going to be very damaging for the economy. And the compliance cost for AI is going to be tremendous. You think that Web3 compliance cost is going to be high, but AI compliance cost is going to be multifold as compared to Web3. So this is where the opportunity for Web3 to come in and say that this is the time that we need to make trust important again. And the only way to create trust is through blockchain. The only way to create trust is through crypto. The only way to have instant payments to payments, the only way to have instant payments versus delivery is through crypto. And for crypto to thrive, we need to have Web3, all the Bitcoin, all the Solana, all the Ether, all the Avalanche that we're seeing. And also the government created global layer 1, government Bitcoin, maybe in future China Ethereum, that we have to come together to ensure that anyone can transfer any money, any asset in any amount, at any time, in any place, in any fraction to anyone. Only then that we can solve the real problem in the financial problem in this world, and also to counter the damage done by AI. So this is my wish.
Okay, so AI and Web3. I think that's actually a big topic this year. A lot of panels going to talk about this. One good thing with AI is helping us to translate. It's not perfect yet, but it's saving a lot of money. So, Oda-san, what do you
Yes, in 2017, more than 50%, more than half percent of Bitcoin trading was made in Japanese yen.
Half.
More than half.
Half in yen.
Of total Bitcoin trading volume was made.
Total volume Asia
Yeah.
or globally?
Yeah, no, not
global.
global.
Half
Was-
in
yeah,
yen.
Yeah.
Which is that's
2017.
2017. So
yeah.
half the trading
Yeah,
in yen.
but now just only 1%.
1%. Okay.
Only now 1%.
Yeah.
And I want to change the market share of Japan to 20%.
Oh,
20%.
So the aim is 20%.
20%.
Okay.
Yeah, by changing the law and the tax reform and the leverage ratio and the Bitcoin ETF. And also, I think what is the most important thing in this market field is anti-money laundering and the
The AML.
security
Yeah.
is very important. And in this year, we built up Crypto Isaac in Japan. Crypto Isaac.
Crypto Isaac,
Isaac.
Isaac,
Yeah,
yeah.
Isaac. And we want to share and make a collaboration with Hong Kong, Singapore, Japan, and the USA for security. Yeah,
Okay.
security is the most important thing in this market. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So improve the share of Japan trade crypto asset from 1% to 20%.
Yeah.
That's a very big big
big
target.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Kevin?
For the Trump administration to realize their MAGA, it's going to take a successful evolution of our relationships and the interconnectivity with the whole world, right? Crypto doesn't live in a vacuum, and the U.S. doesn't live in a vacuum. So for all the talk and the histrionics, et cetera, I think what we're going through, as you said, is a restructuring that's going to enable an interconnectivity that's going to be facilitated by this wonderful evolution of the blockchain ledger. You're going to see, I believe, a real explosion in applications, which I think Asia, Hong Kong, et cetera, leads the U.S. But I think there's going to be greater and greater alignment because it's in everyone's interest. So on the regulation front, the fact that the U.S. is finally stepping up and perhaps reassuming its historical lead in regulation, the opportunities for Hong Kong to align themselves, but to also differentiate themselves, as well as Singapore, as well as Japan, et cetera, is there. And the question will be in these markets, what is it that you decide you want to lead in? Because the U.S. is leading, generally speaking, but you all are going to be better than us in the U.S. in many things and should be and historically have been. So I think the opportunity is there, differentiation. And Marketing 101 is segment, target, position. And I think there's tremendous opportunity in this part of the world. And certainly Hong Kong has an opportunity, along with Singapore, to differentiate from the U.S., align themselves in the extent they have to and need to, but differentiate in ways that I think the creativity in this part of the world, the application evolution is going to be forthcoming, the DeFi as an example. So I see so much opportunity around the world outside of the U.S. And now that simply, hopefully, the U.S. is going to be supportive of this evolution. And so I see just a very bright future that I did not see 6 months ago, that we have not experienced ever in this ecosystem. And the opportunity, as Professor Liu alluded to, the U.S., we want to see inclusion. We want to see the average person around the world avail themselves of financial inclusion opportunity that we in the U.S. have been spoiled by. And that I think that's going to come. And I think it's now going to come sooner because, thank goodness, the U.S. is now playing its part relative to this landscape. So I couldn't be more excited and more bullish today. In all the years I've been working in this ecosystem, it's so exciting.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks for the compliment to Hong Kong and what we can do. We will try our best. But application side, definitely rely on people in the room and the tech innovators inside the venue. So we need all these people to innovate, to make new products for the industry. And we're about, the time's up, and there's a lot of interesting thoughts shared from the perspective from the free speaker representing different different part of the world. Thanks a lot. There's a lot of things we want to, of course, talk and actually update on, especially the US thing. But I know Jason's going to be sharing his thoughts on the US landscape, so we'll leave that part to him. And so everyone, please join me for a round of applause for our speakers. Thank you. Thank you for joining. Thank you.
Thank you so much. 掌声再次感谢我们的演讲嘉宾的精彩分享。请就坐。Once again, a big round of applause to thank all our panelists and our moderator for sharing their expertise and experiences with us. We enjoyed it a lot. And I'm sure everyone here has some great takeaways and useful insights on the topic, current state and challenge of global Web3 regulation. So today we're very privileged to have many experts and entrepreneurs joining us today to share with us their experiences. So we do hope that everyone here can make the most of it. If you have any questions, do feel free to reach out to them. 那在我们进行下一个演讲之前，有一个温馨提示，我们有一个礼品的兑换的活动。那在会看里面，你们可以看到在赞助上 logo 页有主办方 Title Sponsor 钻石所有 Co-Organizer 白金黄金 Networking Lounge Coffee Bar 赞助商 logo 下方只有个盖章处。那活动期间，只要集齐我们指定区域内的所有印章，就可以前往我们咨询台兑换礼品了。So now, ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to our next keynote speech. 接下来，我们有请 Bitcoin Policy Institute 联合创始人 David Sell 先生带来的分享。Next, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. David Sell, co-founder Bitcoin Policy Institute, to the stage to share with us a keynote speech. A big round of applause to welcome him. 掌声有请。
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you so much to the organizers of the Hong Kong Web3 Festival for inviting me to come here all the way from Washington, D.C. To speak with you all. So my name is David Zell, and I'm the co-founder and co-president of the Bitcoin Policy Institute. We're a Washington, D.C. based organization and the largest cryptocurrency think tank in the United States. So what do? We primarily write research about the relationship between Bitcoin and the US government's interests. We work very closely and regularly with members of Congress and the White House. And our core focus the past few months has been the strategic Bitcoin reserve. So today I'm going to talk about a few things. First, I'm going to sort of walk you through the evolving landscape of Bitcoin policy in America, sort of how we got from a very hostile and negative approach from the government toward our industry to where we are now, walk you through the recent regulatory developments, especially the SBR, and talk about some implications for the future. So, Trump 1.0. For those of you that have been around crypto for a while, you may remember that Trump was not always in love with digital assets. His administration didn't do a lot, one way or the other in the first go-around with respect to crypto. Notably, at the very end of his first term, you may recall that Secretary Mnuchin pushed for a very last-minute provision that would essentially kill hosted wallets. And that proposal was shot down at the 11th hour. So, there were very limited crypto-friendly policies and a focus on compliance and enforcement. So the big question that I want to help answer today is, how did we get from this? In 2019, Donald Trump tweeted, "I am not a fan of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, which are not money, and whose value is highly volatile and based on thin air. Unregulated crypto assets can facilitate unlawful behavior, including drug trade and other illegal activity." That was in 2019. Just a few months ago, we had this: the establishment of the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve and the United States Digital Asset Stockpile. So why did America and the Trump administration specifically decide to pivot on Bitcoin? I think there are three main trends that kind of formed the tailwinds for this shift. The first is increased adoption and legitimacy. During the past few years, we've seen, as many of you know, a drastic uptick in interest in cryptocurrency from Wall Street, in particular BlackRock. So I think one key trend is that as the price went up, as the value increased, and as more legitimate and traditional firms in America started adopting Bitcoin, offering Bitcoin products and services to their clients, it became more mainstream, credible, and less, crazy in the eyes of the average American. All the while, the Biden administration was quite hostile toward cryptocurrency. Their position kind of got worse and worse as the presidency went on, whether it was Operation Choke Point 2.0, which was the informal phrase for a series of extrajudicial enforcement actions against American banks who chose to partner with and provide services for crypto companies, whether it was attacking unhosted wallets or decrying Bitcoin for its energy usage. While Bitcoin was growing in price and legitimacy, the last administration in the US was trying to crack down. The third key trend that I think fomented the shift we're seeing now is the emergence of crypto as a political force in America. Coinbase registered millions of people to vote. Hundreds of thousands of Americans decided that they would make their one voting issue cryptocurrency. And of course, this industry spent money in a pretty unprecedented way. In the last presidential election, the digital asset industry spent more money in that election than any industry had ever spent in American history. And so these three trends, Bitcoin's increased price and legitimacy, the emergence of this new class of voter and donor, against the backdrop of a hostile administration, led Trump to backtrack from that 2019 tweet at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville, where, among other things, he promised to establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And the markets were pretty happy about this. Obviously, the markets are not happy now, but you might remember, and it's worth noting that you can see on the left there, that's the price chart of Bitcoin after Trump won the election, and on the right, the price chart of MicroStrategy the day of the election. So both Bitcoin and sort of beta plays on Bitcoin grew immensely as people were speculating on administrative actions, but also were just pricing in a more crypto-friendly regulatory environment in general. So yeah, Trump won, and he doubled down on Bitcoin very hard. Many, if not most, of the key leaders in his administration own Bitcoin or are public supporters of cryptocurrency. So the Vice President, J.D. Vance, the Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, Scott Bessent, Waltz, Hegseth, RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, just to name a few. He appointed notable investor and technologist David Sachs to be the White House AI and crypto czar. And he signed a pro-digital asset executive order within several days of assuming office for the second time. But then a surprise came: the establishment of the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. This is such a notable change, and I think it's worth reading directly from the executive order. In the introduction, it says, as a result of its scarcity and security, Bitcoin is often referred to as digital gold. Because there is no fixed supply of BTC, there is a strategic advantage to being among the first nations to create a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Later on, it says, quote, the Secretary of the Treasury, and the Secretary of Commerce shall develop strategies for acquiring additional government BTC, provided that those strategies are budget neutral and do not impose incremental costs on US taxpayers. So, actually, I want to back up a quick second. This executive order is the law of the land in the United States. It can't really be understated the extent to which this is a massive, massive phase shift. And just to break it down, the executive order did a few things. It created this strategic reserve, which is essentially just a fancy name for the coins that we already have. It created a digital asset stockpile, which is just a fancy name for the other cryptocurrencies that the US already holds. But the piece of this that I think is most notable is that the Treasury and Commerce departments are explicitly directed to acquire more Bitcoin. So that brings us to today. A few things are brewing. The first is that executive order also mandated an official accounting of the US government's Bitcoin holdings. They've been reported to be around 200,000 coins, but many of those belong to Bitfinex. And it's believed, although rumored, that the Biden administration may have sold a significant number of coins. So that's actually supposed to come on Monday morning US time. So in a few hours, we should get a clearer picture of just how many Bitcoins the US government holds. These budget-neutral strategies to acquire more Bitcoin are being drafted and analyzed and debated. And in Congress, the Bitcoin Act, Senator Lummis's bill, which, if passed, would require the US government to buy 1 million Bitcoins, is gaining surprising momentum in Congress. When it was originally introduced, it had no co-sponsors. It was just one senator. Now that bill, after being reintroduced, has 6 Senate co-sponsors and a companion bill in the House. So one question that I think has been on a lot of people's minds is, to what extent is this just bluster and hype? And to what extent are this executive order and these actions indicative of a serious intent to accumulate Bitcoin? I think it really is the latter. Bo Hines, who is the executive director of the President's Council on Digital Assets, said at a recorded panel not too long ago, he was asked, how many Bitcoins does the US government want? And he laughed and shrugged his shoulders and said, that's like asking how many dollars I want or how much gold I want. My administration wants to acquire as much Bitcoin as we physically can, so long as it does not impose burdens on the taxpayer. So what are the implications for the rest of the world and for Asia specifically? I think the biggest is that Bitcoin is now officially endorsed by the United States as a strategic, neutral reserve asset. The framing of digital gold, both by key administration officials and codified in the executive order, is quite significant. We went from Bitcoin being called highly volatile and based on thin air to being called digital gold formally. And I think that this pro-Bitcoin policy is likely to intensify. Many onlookers were skeptical and thought that once Donald Trump was elected president, he would just kind of leave the crypto thing behind. That he just sort of wanted to placate voters and win an election, and then he would sort of work on other things. And I think that at the time, when he just took office, that was not an unreasonable assessment. But the fact that his administration has continued to double down on Bitcoin signals that this was more than bluster, more than a campaign promise, because he's not running for office again. So he has no incentive to pass an executive order and to direct his cabinet to pursue Bitcoin purchases, unless that's genuinely what he wanted to do. The next important implication is that Bitcoin's political risk, at least in the United States, has effectively gone to zero. For a long time, as investors were weighing whether to buy Bitcoin and crypto and how much to buy, the constant overhang was that governments may ban it, that if it got too large, the United States would simply not let this exist. That risk is over, and I'm not sure that the market has fully priced that in. And so across the world, we see global investors, family offices, policymakers are sort of fundamentally reassessing Bitcoin. They may have dismissed it or raised an eyebrow early on, and now it's just too big to ignore. And the developments in the United States coming out of the White House, I think, are a key signal for players all over the world that the next decade that we experience, which, as previous speakers mentioned, the sort of economic reordering that is taking place, I think it's becoming increasingly clear that cryptocurrencies, and Bitcoin in particular, have a strong role to play in that reordering. So where are we looking forward? I think it's clear and very obvious that when that executive order was released, it quickly landed on the desk of every major country's president, their central bank leaders, their finance ministers. I highly doubt that this was ignored globally. And it's triggering very serious debate and discussion all over the world around what Bitcoin means for each country and for their economic strategy. And my strong suspicion is that we will see more countries following. The United States has long been a leader in technology policy, and my guess is that once the US government starts buying Bitcoin, that we're going to see a ripple effect across the world. And we're also seeing a ripple effect of the Bitcoin strategies that are being employed by American companies, notably MicroStrategy, was a vehicle for many investors to try to gain sort of leverage on Bitcoin, so to speak. And we're seeing companies emulate a similar strategy all over the world, whether it's Metaplanet in Japan, which has surpassed a $1 billion USD valuation, or more recently, the announcement of a company just like Metaplanet and MicroStrategy here in Hong Kong, HK Asia Holdings, otherwise known as Moon Inc., recently became the first company in China to formally adopt a Bitcoin treasury. So thank you all for, again, inviting me. I've had a wonderful time here in Hong Kong and at this conference, and I look forward to getting to know more of you as this trip continues. So thanks for letting me share my insights. I appreciate it.
Thank you, David. 掌声感谢 Fabulous presentation. Thank you so much for sharing your insights on the topic U.S. Bitcoin policy. 接下来，我们有请北京大学教授陈仲教授来到我们台上带来分享。Next, we will have a keynote speech from Chen Zhong, professor at Peking University. A big round of applause, please, to welcome him. 掌声有请。
女士们、先生们，大家中午好！非常高兴应这个会议主办方的邀请，来参加这个 Web3 的嘉年华。那我想跟大家分享的题目呢，是 Web 3.0的区块链的技术创新和制度创新的融合。那么我是来自于北京大学，那么北京大学也是在科技部的重大专项当中，作为一个重要的团队不仅参与了这个自主研发的区块链基础平台的研制，也有很多在区块链基础理论、关键技术、治理技术、平台和示范应用方面的一些实践。特别是我们看到在做这个学术的研究的时候，那它不仅仅是限于国内的这个联盟链的这种研究，那更多的呢是关注到全球包括今年我们在这个 ISTA 当中的唯一的一个最佳论文奖，也是关注了在这个 Smart Contract， 就是这个智能合约当中的这个密码学的这个缺陷的发现等等这些方面。但是今天呢，我想分享的呢，我们会注意到这个2024年制度经济学的学者获得了诺贝尔经济学奖，他们的学术研究通过历史的数据，这个展示了制度的设计和技术之间的关系，而且某种意义上讲，这个制度的设计的话呢，更加的这个重要。因此，我们也是会看到观察到区块链的应用是典型的技术 和制度创新紧密结合的产物，制度设计恐怕尤为重要。那么区块链的技术创新呢，其实我们会看到它是诸多的创新当中的一个非常有里程碑的一项工作，也是在支撑 Web 3.0的这个发展。那么区块链，就像前面的嘉宾所分享这个当中，我们看到呢，它这个解决了关注的重点是信任和价值这两个方面。那么它同时呢，也有这个比较强有力的一些理论的研究的支撑，包括新的这个数字经济学和货币的国家化等等。那么元宇宙 Metaverse， 我们也会注意到，它并不是一项单一的技术，但是呢，它有一个相应的这样的一个边界，使得呢，我们整个的互联网 Web 3.0向未来的发展，这个还在这个路上。根据 Gartner 的这个报告来看的话呢，大约到2030年啊，我们才能看到一个成熟的这个元宇宙的这样的一个模式出现。但是呢，在这个当中，我们会看到 Web 3的这个技术以及呢这个价值的这种交易和交换，在里边扮演的重要的这个角色，并且呢，我们会看到从它的这个发展的过程当中啊，在数字货币、这个区块链啊以及 Web 3啊，起到一个核心重要的一个支撑的作用。那我们也看到了今天的这个 AI-GC， 实际上它也是在诸多的技术这个积累之下，比方说互联网的大连接所产生的大数据的积累，使得深度神经网络的这个算法的成熟和算力的支撑，对这些数据驱动的这样的一种方式的处理，使得它能够进行大规模的知识的生成，形成一个大智能。所以我们整体上去看这个计算的时代，计算机的发明，使得我们过去用算法和编程由软件工程师设计好的这个数据结构，使得我们能够做大量的信息处理，支撑了我们今天的信息互联网。而今天的大语言模型所形成的，实际上是在所有人工智能发展过程当中，深度神经网络的机器学习算法和它的数据驱动的方式，那么形成了一个从信息处理再进一步上升到知识处理。如果我们说这个数据是毫无价值的，那信息在特定的时空领域对特定的人是有价值的，那么知识呢是有一个普遍的价值的。因此我们会看到今天的数据互联，或者我们所声称的信息互联网，向未来的价值互联的变迁，那么 AI-GC 也会扮演一个非常重要的角色。只不过我们会看到这个些技术的发展仍然在过程之中，它的制度性的设计和经济模式的这个形成的过程还有待于大家的一个贡献。那么从区块链来看的话呢，我们从技术的角度会看到它有这个价值仅有价值的互联叫这个 value only 的这种应用，比方说我们的比特币系统。那比方说在以太坊的平台上，能够把价值和业务结合起来，形成了一个大的互联。那么在大陆或者内地，更多鼓励的联盟链的这个应用，是一种仅有业务互联的这样一个方式，或者叫无币的区块链。那么这些方面的这个进展，实际上底层还有相应的这个技术的支撑。那公有链和联盟链现在也在进行一些趋同，比方说这个以太坊的 POW 转向的 POS， 但是它们还有一个最根本的一个区别，就是是否依赖于一种经济激励的机制那么实际上我们会看到，在中国这个政府早就这个注意到区块链技术的发展，以及希望用区块链的技术来支撑这个产业的发展从2016年的“13+5”的规划，到这个2019年这个总书记组织中央政治局的集体学习，把区块链技术作为核心技术自主创新的重要突破口的这样的一个讲话的指示精神上升到这个国家的战略。 那么以及呢，我们会看到在“十四五”的规划里边，把区块链作为数字经济这个数字产业组成的一个重要部分。以及呢，我们看从2000年起的这个中国的科技部在“十四五”重点专项里边，把区块链作为一个重要的这个方向这也是在国家一级这个推动这个技术研究发展的一个重要的这个计划。那到目前为止，我们看到在5大板块里边已经部署了66个科研的这个任务。那么另外在这个区块链的这个国家级的综合示范和试点一共有这个179个项目这个落地。那么这里的话呢，实际上我们可以看到这个对于技术的这个发展在这个中国的这个在内地应该说这个有一个完整的布局。那这里边的话呢，也提供了为未来的这个制度设计呢的一种重要的支撑。那我们看到，实际上在国际上看，这个制度的设计重点是在价值互联这个方面的这个创新我们看到国际清算银行把这个价值的表达总结出了一个 money flower， 那么它这个完整的覆盖了包括法定货币央行发行数字货币、央行背书发行的数字货币，以及稳定币和加密资产的这样的一个广谱的这样的一个体系。那么实际上我们看到区块链所带来的最核心的一个技术特征就是它的可编程性，而这种可编程性使得未来的数字经济的发展，它有赖于会把这个制度的设计很好的从这个规则和这个实体的这个经济的这个运行有效的把它结合起来那么这些方面我们也是看到虽然这个内地和国际的这个在这个制度设计上面有明显的区别，但是呢，香港呢扮演了一个非常重要的这个角色，来进行这个虚拟资产的数字资产的这个更广泛的一种探索。那么，单从技术上讲，这比特币是一个技术的一个载体。那么它之所以能够有今天的这个价值和价格，那么还是制度设计会把它和传统的这个金融领域连接起来，甚至会把它塑造成一个数字黄金的一种战略的这个储备。我们看到，在美国的很多的这个从2017年的举措包括这个它的这个期货交易、商品期货的交易，包括 ETF 的期货交易，以及到现货的这个交易等等。那么实际上，这个构筑了一个数字资产和现实世界的一个桥梁。当然，从治理的角度，我们也看到这个不断的关注和不同的机构有着不同的这个态度。因为时间的关系，我们就不展开了那么我们可以看到，这个近10年来，这个美元计价的全球的大类资产的表现。那么在10年当中仅有2年，这个比特币呢是作为第1名Top 1的这个缺席剩下的这块的话呢，确实给我们一个非常重要的一个启示。那么这个刚才几位嘉宾也都谈到了包括美国 SEC 批准11只现货 ETF， 包括在香港我们也同样的建立，以及呢2023年美国通过的这个区块链监管确定性的法案，从立法的角度明确了区块链和区块链的开发者的服务无需取得任何的这个 license， 以及我们会看到这个国际清算银行已经更新了巴塞尔framework 这个框架，并且呢从今年的1月1号已经开始实施。那么我们还看到这个美国的财务会计准则委员会 FASB 把这个公允价值这个加密货币的公允价值作为一个会计的准则，修改了会计准则，使得这个我们的上市公司有了一个这个依据那么也是说我们真正的入表从这个里边表现出来。那么国际货币基金组织今年已经在3月份这个宣布了这个 BPM7 就是第7版的这个国际收支的手册，并且呢，预计在2029、2030年来推动BPM7和最新的国民账户体系的广泛的使用。这个比特币的战略储备刚才这个前位演讲也都涉及到了。那么实际上我们看到，包括这个 stable coin 那么实际上我们看到，在整体上未来的这个经济的运作的体系当中那么这个新的这种价值表达，它的占比必将会在过去整体的这个份额当中会有一个新的表现。那么好，这个香港呢，其实我们可以看到，在制度创新，特别是在结合技术的制度创新里边，具有独特的这个位置。我们刚才看到了这个几位嘉宾都分享了这个在香港推进的进展。在这儿呢，我想还补充一下就是在这个 Web 3.0标准化的这个方面的进展的话呢，其实是把这个技术和制度的设计有效结合的一个底层的支持。比方说，我们可以看到这个对 Web 3.0的这个数字原生生态体系的认知，它在香港我们明确地表达了它包含Web 3加密经济体系作为它的一个核心。那么另外的话呢，我们也会把这个联盟链、公有链，在这个 token 化的这个整个的版图里边，会面向不同的问题，给出了它的技术和协议多维度发展的一个路线图。那么这样的话，我们在金融和服务以及呢和实体这个经济结合的方面，怎么样去利用这个数字资产？这个有资产的支持和无资产的支持，以及包括央行发行的这个数字货币之间能构成一个完整的技术和制度结合的一个版图。那最后呢，我想说的话呢，作为区块链作为一项技术，我们可以看到它在中美的博弈当中依然列在这个关键和新兴技术的清单当中。2020年它实际上是作为1级目录。但是到2022年呢，我们发现它放在了金融科技的下面。那么每2年的这个更新，到了2024年，我们会发现区块链的技术是放在数据隐私、数据安全和网络安全下面的这个2级目录的第1个。那说明这一项技术依然是在未来会发挥重要作用的一个技术方面。那么我们看到北京和上海这个关于这个元宇宙互联网3.0的行动计划，以及这个在我们的这个工信部所出台的这些这个3年的行动计划当中，实际上呢，它的内涵都涉及到了我们对未来 Web 3.0的期待。那么 Web 3.0呢，也是作为这个两会这个代表的议案提出来并且呢，我们看到这个中国在制定这个 Web 3.0指导意见这样的一个政策文件的这个过程当中那么所以呢，最后呢，我想说，这个我们健全促进实体经济和数字经济深度融合的这样一种制度的设计，来推动高质量发展，是我们未来的希望，特别是结合香港这个在制度创新方面的这个它的一个独特的地位。所以我们会看到，在技术创新方面这个在内陆已经有很好的一个布局。我们把它定义成一个开放环境下新型区块链的基础平台。那么它能够去融合这个联盟链和公有链的技术。那概括起来，它能够起到的作用就是体系结构可演进，内置监管与合规，链内链间可支付，锚定法币双循环。我们也希望这样的一个技术的创新和香港的在价值互联、数字信任方面制度创新的有机的结合，能够去支持我们整个在国际上把内地、香港和全球联系起来，形成一个跨域的协同。我们也期待呢，这个在新的这个世界的这个大的变革的格局方面，我们能够在这方面的话呢，能够取得一些这个推动和成功。好，我的分享呢就到这里，谢谢大家。
谢谢，掌声感谢陈仲先生的宝贵分享。接下来，我们有请香港特别行政区政府财经事务及库务局副局长陈浩濂先生上台演讲。掌声有请。Next, let's welcome Mr. Joseph H.L. Chan, JP Undersecretary for Financial Services and the Treasury Financial Services and the Treasury Bureau, the Government of the HKSAR. Welcome.
各位嘉宾、女士们、先生们，大家早上好！我非常高兴参与今天的2025香港 Web3 嘉年华。今天呢，我们齐聚于此，共同见证和庆祝香港第三代互联网 Web3 还有金融科技的蓬勃发展，一起探索未来的无限机遇。今天早时呢，财政司司长以英语发言。所以现在这个环节呢，我选择用中文的发言。首先，我要衷心的感谢万象区块链实验室和 HashKey Group 筹办这次盛会，为我们业界搭建的这个关键的交流的平台。同时呢，我也感谢所有与会的嘉宾，大家的参与和贡献，对于共同构建一个虚拟资产的未来至关重要的。香港拥有一国两制的制度优势。在背靠祖国、联通世界的独特的背景之下呢，香港已经发展成为亚洲领先的国际金融中心。在资本市场方面，香港继续成为亚洲区内最大的亚洲国际债券发行中心。在跨境财富管理方面呢，按资产规模来计算呢，香港的排名是世界第2位，亚洲第1位。香港也是亚洲最大的对冲基金中心。在风险管理方面呢，我们的保险密度也是全球第2高，亚洲第1高的。作为国际金融中心，香港始终是走在科技创新的前沿。截止去年的9月呢，香港已经拥有超过1100家的金融科技企业，年增长呢达到超过15%，涵盖数字银行、虚拟保险、虚拟资产交易平台等等的多元的领域。当中呢，也包括8家的持牌的数字银行，4家的持牌的虚拟保险公司，还有10家的持牌的虚拟资产交易平台，为全球的用户提供创新和便捷的金融服务。当然，近年来区块链、大币化、人工智能等继续的融合，也为我们金融科技开辟了新的天地，会加速 Web3 的发展呢。香港特区政府采取了全方位的措施。今天早上，财政司司长在监管制度方面呢，也做出了简述。在产业的扶持和人才培育的方面呢，特区政府已经拨款了5000万港元呢，支持数码港推动 Web3 生态圈的建设。当中呢，已经汇聚了多家 Web3 的企业在香港。也寄望以产业导向人才培育的工作。数码港也推出了多项人才培育的计划，包括透过数码港 Web 3.0实系计划2024呢，安排大学生到科创企业从事第三代互联网 Web 3应用相关的实习的工作。在包括 Web 3之内的整体的金融科技人才措施呢，这是在2018年以来呢，首份人才清单已经纳入了金融科技专业在里面，让香港继续吸引呢环球顶尖的金融科技，包括 Web 3的人才到香港。另外，金融科技从业员培训资助先导计划已经为成功取得金融科技专业资格的从业员提供学费的资助。到现在已经有超过560个从业员报读相关的课程。还有呢，湾区券商学生金融科技双向实习计划呢，记住香港和内地的两地的学生在金融科技，包括 Web 3企业呢短期的实习的工作，既呢加强人才交流和壮大我们金融科技和 Web 3的人才库。实习计划到现在，这个实习计划呢，可以提供呢超过150个的实习的名额， 推出至今呢，已经成功配对了超过80个学生到金融科技和 Web3 的企业实习。此外呢，投资者及理财教育委员会连同香港科技大学和数码港举办的比赛，教育青少年有关 Web3 和金融科技对金融服务和投资领域的重要性。香港一直以来扮演着一个传统和创新的桥梁的角色。作为排名世界第3、亚洲第1位的国际金融中心，我们不敢矢志不渝地培育一个充满活力、安全和具前进性的区块链和金融科技的生态圈，也致力于推动行业的创新和可持续发展。我们期待与全球的伙伴携手，共同开创 Web3 和金融科技的新时代。展望将来了，香港的目标不单只是要成为亚洲 Web3 的枢纽，更是全球创新网络的重要的节点。我们将继续完善我们监管的框架，鼓励继续的应用落地，并通过国际化的平台，很像今天的嘉年华，促进跨界别交流和合作。在此我再次感谢万象区块链实验室、Hashkey Group 还有所有合作伙伴支持 Web3 的发展，也感谢在座每一位的参与，就让我们携手共同合作，以科技推动未来，一起为 Web3 的可持续发展努力。谢谢大家。
谢谢，感谢陈浩廉先生的精彩致辞，请就座。Thank you, Joseph, for insightful sharing. Please be seated. 接下来，我们有请我们早上最后一位的嘉宾 ，Keybridge Advisors 董事总经理 Jason Brett 上台演讲。Moving on to our last keynote speech of the morning session, may I have the honor to invite Mr. Jason Brett, Managing Director of Keybridge Advisors. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome him. 掌声有请。Over to you now, Jason.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the Hashkey Group for having me here today. It's an honor to speak with you all. I think that there are a lot of opportunities in Web3 between Hong Kong and the United States, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about more of a high-level overview of what's happening in the United States, so you can kind of get an idea of what some of the initiatives are that are going to be, maybe for the next 12 to 18 months, but could change if there's a new administration, and what we've seen with some of the changes in the regulators, and what might be more permanent changes. So my talk today is going to focus on how the US is becoming the crypto capital of the world. And I say that because that's sort of what's been used by the President of the United States to describe this ecosystem, is that he wants the United States to become the crypto capital of the world. And as been described before, this is really a 180-degree change from where before we had an administration in the White House that was pushing back on this technology, thinking there was a lot of ill that came from it and problems, and people in the United States weren't able to develop the software, sometimes under threat of persecution, and sometimes people at companies having their bank accounts closed, simply trying to work in this space, or bank charters being revoked or not given at all based on the idea that they were even considering working in crypto. So that's how serious things were. And what we have with this new administration, I'll explain to you a little bit why that's changed, is this very friendly, open embrace of the United States to the crypto community. So you saw this earlier from my colleague, David Zell, and you heard Kevin Goldstein talk about it a little bit as well on the panel about sort of this shift that we've seen. There's so many shifts, but I think this one is the most telling. I won't read the first side to you because you already heard that earlier about what Trump thought of Bitcoin in 2019. What's important about that is 2019 was very different with the way people thought about Bitcoin in the United States. It wasn't as well known as it is now, and at the time, Facebook, now Meta, had just introduced this idea of their own stablecoin, a global stablecoin or world coin. And in a sense, stablecoins were almost more threatening in the United States to the idea of what could happen to the US dollar and the banking system than even Bitcoin was. But in this tweet, he not only talked about the problems with Bitcoin, he also talked about concerns about Libra introducing a stablecoin. So on the other side, you have, of course, Trump reelected primarily by a lot of the efforts from the crypto community, and talking, of course, about how it was foolish for the United States to sell Bitcoin. So this represents one element of the way he changed his view on Bitcoin. But there's reasons for that, and I'm going to go over that in a minute. Basically, the first of three things is, first of all, there's executive momentum, regulatory clarity, and then you're going to see what I call sort of legislative firepower that should be the real indicators to you of what might change the United States. First of all, the idea of being the crypto capital of the world. The US leadership is trying to take leadership in the digital financial technology. This is an executive order. So it's not done through a law in Congress, but it's an executive order from Trump where he's saying we need to, very interestingly, talk about 5 concepts. The first concept was that we're not going to persecute anyone working on blockchain technology. That means that the developers, people trying to validate or mine, other different aspects of the work that you would do, that you wouldn't face persecution. That's what was led with this executive order. Then it talks about strengthening the global sovereignty of the US dollar and creating lawful stablecoins that would work to help promote the US dollar. The third was creating open and fair access to banking. I talked a little bit about how a lot of the crypto companies were being debanked in the United States. The fourth idea, after you have the stable coins, then you have the debanking, goes through what the heart of the matter is regarding the regulation of cryptocurrencies. You heard about AZ16 and Duncan and others talking about the 5 different types of cryptocurrencies. You know, the SEC is trying to work through that now at the regulatory side. But this fourth of the 5 ideas was, how do we figure out how this fits in what we would call sort of the market structure concept? And then finally, the fifth notion was that we weren't going to do a CBDC, or central bank digital currency. This particular executive order talks about the dangers of a CBDC, primarily because a CBDC could be seen as sort of a liability on the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve, or as a retail function. And that's very unusual in the United States, the idea that the Federal Reserve would be interacting with the people. It more interacts with the banks. So there's a clear delineation about not doing CBDCs, and yes, the stable coins. The second one is the strategic Bitcoin reserve, or the digital Fort Knox. Again, you heard about that a little bit before. I think what's important about that is there's this notion of like what exactly this does. To be clear, the United States already has all these Bitcoin. It's really a matter of putting it in one account and having it be accounted for. And then there is some ideas about maybe buying more Bitcoin and also the stockpile to keep track of all the other cryptocurrencies. But the idea is that sort of saying that like Bitcoin and crypto are both special, right? And keeping it in the US as sort of a reserve, which is similar to what the United States did back in 1930s, when they decided they needed gold to stay in the United States. They didn't want to see gold being pushed overseas. So there's actually an order back then where people actually had to turn in their gold to banks. Now, I'm not saying this is designed for people to turn in their Bitcoin to the United States, but it's of the same premise that it's seen as a very special asset, so we need to do things to keep it in the United States. And then finally, so that's your sort of digital Fort Knox, so to speak, or the idea of Bitcoin as gold. Finally, the one that probably you haven't heard much about at all, but is very important to note, is blockchain payments, or America's bank account. This is modernizing payments to and from America's bank account. So what this is saying is that it's going to, in the United States, we're going to stop issuing paper checks from our Treasury to pay for anything that might be like Social Security or welfare payments or anything along those lines, getting your tax refund. It's going 100% electronic, and it's going 100% electronic by September 30th, according to this executive order. What this leaves the door open to is the idea of using blockchain, right, the technology, because it does say in this executive order that you can actually use digital wallets as part of transmitting the funds of the United States government to its citizens and back. It, of course, goes over the idea of using a bank account, debit credit cards, but it notably says, as the third option, is digital wallets or other electronic forms of payment. So this particular executive order really addresses the story of payments, right? Maybe we'll have stable coins one day. Maybe I'll have a US stable coin that I'll pay some of my taxes with. So that's, again, the executive momentum. And I call it momentum because we've seen this all shift before where we have a new president and this could all go away in a few years. So it is something to watch as far as the direction of this particular administration in the United States right now in 2025. There's been a regulatory reset. So this is important because with any election in the United States, there are new regulators that are put in place. And so whether it's the SEC, the CFTC, the banking regulators like the FTC, I'm formerly an FDIC banking regulator during the global financial crisis, have already started to do things to make it more friendly for crypto. You've heard a little bit about that before, but what I think is important is for the last 4 years, we've seen this enforcement first approach. We've seen lawsuits filed against the industry, and we've seen banks really stop crypto adoption. It had kind of been formed in 2020 by Brian Brooks, who was the former acting comptroller of the OCC, who designed all of this. But then for 4 years, it was basically blocked, any adoption of crypto into the banking system. And what is most interesting about this trend for the regulatory reset is that we don't even have the leaders in place yet. Like Paul Atkins for the SEC, he hasn't even become the chair under the Trump administration. The CFTC, we haven't seen Brian Quintes officially become the chair of the CFTC. Now, both are likely going to be, nominated and secured in Congress and the Senate, right? But to see regulators acting so quickly, like you heard about the SEC trying to figure out how to regulate tokens, the CFTC looking at ideas about using stablecoins for collateral on trades. These are all really items that normally you would wait for a chair to come in to start executing all these things. So there's a real push, particularly in the SEC and the CFTC, from the presidency, from the administration, which is also a very unprecedented concept in the United States. This should explain to you just how fast crypto is moving in the United States, because typically the president defers really to what the SEC does, or the CFTC does, or let's say the Federal Reserve. In other words, it's supposed to be an independent agency. So the fact that they're acting in this way, and that even the SEC and the CFTC are included in the first executive order I mentioned before about modernizing American digital finance, that it's almost being directed by the administration is very unusual, if not, perhaps not even supposed to be the way you do things. It's supposed to be these agencies decide things on their own, but they're clearly taking their cues from this particular administration, and that's what's accelerating the SEC. They just announced that stablecoins would be covered stablecoin. In other words, not going to be a securities, which really leaves the door open for stablecoins. So again, you're seeing the regulatory clarity approach now, trying to figure out how this whole ecosystem can work for Web3 in the United States. You're seeing lawsuits now dropped against the industry, and now the banks are accelerating crypto adoption. The FDIC and the OCC actually changed their way of needing this letter of approval before a bank actually engages in crypto. Now you can just do it, which really makes the most sense, specifically as a former FDIC regulator, because it's about safety and soundness in the banking system. So really you should be able to choose what sort of permissible banking activity you want to do without checking with the regulator. The reason the regulator's there is to actually watch over what you're doing and making sure you're doing it in a safe and sound manner, and then tell you if you're not. They're not supposed to tell you which activities you can and cannot do. And then finally, I'll just wrap up with the legislative, what I call firepower, or the two-pillar approach. And this is what I would say is really your two North Stars to what's happening in the United States. The first is the building around the idea of a regulatory licensing and reserves for dollar-backed stablecoins. We have the Genius Act that's in the Senate, and we have the Stable Act that's in the House. These are the names of these two stablecoin bills that are both moving. The Senate's already out of committee. Neither the House or the Senate has voted on it. One of the big obstacles is going to be in the Senate, because you need at least 60 votes in our Senate, And that means you would need at least 8 Democrats or 8 people from the other party that have had some objections to stablecoins. So what that's going to mean is you're going to see probably stablecoin legislation where the big fight is going to be really around whether companies like Meta or X by Elon Musk are allowed to be a stablecoin provider. It's going to allow non-banks to provide stablecoins under a federal banking concept, a charter, so to speak, and a regime that could be either at the federal or state level. So these are all normal, but the idea is going to be, and the big fight's going to be really at the end of the day, is a principle in the United States, which is really to keep banking separate from commerce, right? In other words, there should be banking activities, and there should be activities that you might be buying and sell things on Facebook Marketplace or whatever that might look like. Those two should be separate, which is a very distinct concept in the United States. It isn't really held throughout the rest of the world. So you're likely going to see some fighting about that, but at the end of the day, my prediction to you is we're probably going to see stablecoin legislation that passes and is sent to Trump, and Trump's likely going to sign this legislation by August, which is before all of the policymakers, members of Congress, and senators leave D.C. And that's really important because I'll tell you right now, the stablecoin market, people are saying it's around like a little over 200 billion or so. My prediction would be by the end of 2025, I think stablecoins will probably go to $1 trillion in market cap if this bill passes, because it's going to give a runway and acceptance throughout the United States and the world in business, and that's what really the stablecoin legislation is going to do. It's going to tell businesses, hey, it's okay to operate with stablecoins. And so there's going to be a critical, quick mass adoption, I think you'll see over the next 12 to 18 months that stablecoin bill passes, and I do think you are going to see that pass. The second pillar, just to wrap up, is this idea, again, of the token issuance on blockchains and getting regulatory clarity. Like I said, we already saw the regulators themselves try to do things. The question is, are we going to see a law, a market structure law, come into place that would be permanent? And the big thing to remember about both stablecoins and market structure bills is that both, if they come into law, mean they can't be reversed later. It's not like something where it's an executive order or it's a regulator doing something specifically. So if you see the market structure come to fruition, that's going to give a full green light to companies like Coinbase and other exchanges, and maybe new exchanges in the United States that can operate with clarity on the tokens and see more of a token issuance and more of a crypto capital markets that grows. So with that, my time is up. If you have any questions or comments, that's my contact information there, and happy to talk to anybody after. And again, thank you so much to Hong Kong and Web3 Festival for having me.
Excellent presentation. Let's give it up for Jason. Thank you, Jason, for giving us an overview of the crypto world in US. Thank you very much. So this wraps up today's morning session. And once again, let's show some appreciation to all our speakers this morning for sharing their great insights and perspectives with us. We enjoyed it a lot, and I'm sure there are many, many great takeaways from the sessions. 各位来宾，我们上半场的主题论坛已经到此结束，现在是用餐时间。我们下半场的主题论坛将会在2点钟准时开始。Ladies and gentlemen, the morning session of our forum has come to an end, and we'll now have a lunch break. The afternoon session will begin at 2 p.m. promptly. 请允许我再次代表主办方感谢冠名赞助商 Ton Foundation、GMGN、OKX Web3 以及钻石赞助商 UMI、Platon、ZA Bank、博时国际战略合作伙伴香港数码港、香港投资推广署和香港贸易发展局支持机构香港旅游发展局的大力支持，再次感谢我们的赞助商。 Please allow me to again extend our sincere gratitude to Hong Kong Web3 Festival title sponsors, Tom Foundation, GMGN, OKX Web3, and Diamond sponsors, UMI, Platon, ZA Bank, Bozera Funds, and also a big thank you to Cyberport, InvestHK, HKTDC for supporting this event as strategic partners. Hong Kong Tourism Board as supporting institution. 我们下午2点钟再见，感谢各位，我们下午再见。